really know.
What drew you to it?
But the Memorial Island is
you're all facing them, and generally, if you have anybody in the audience, that's where they are on
Yeah.
the sides.
No, yeah, for that.
So it's just, it is crowd. Well, let's see. Those people now, they can look directly at you and feel they're being heard and listened and eye contact. No, they will. Now they'll present right in the middle.
We'll call to order at 8:30 a.m. I think that's the first one I've gotten off on time. Has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? Motion to accept the agenda, Council Campion. All in favor? There's a hand I see kind of waving in there. Perfect. Delegations. We have 818 Studios. Project update.
You guys remember Jennifer? So Jennifer's been retained in her company to work on our seniors amenity zone project. So we had our site meeting on a cold, windy day a couple weeks ago. So Jennifer just wanted the opportunity to share some concepts with council and get any feedback and answer any questions that you might have on the project today. So Jennifer, if you're ready.
Just share the screen, I think, here. It's not.
Is it at the bottom, Jen?
Yeah, it's just I have to go into preferences. I'm sorry. And
Where are you at today, Sandra B?
I'm at home sick.
Oh, okay.
So good morning, everybody. So,
Good morning.
I will rejoin the meeting in 1 minute because I need to quit apparently so I can share my screen. I do apologize.
Councilor Bogan, I thought you'd be off somewhere exotic or.
oh yeah, no, are you kidding? Not. This is it. This is my world.
Yeah.
Hanna and surrounding area, I guess. How about you? How was everybody's week? Was it all right?
Good, busy.
Good. And thank you to Lori for helping me use my computer. I had some issues yesterday, so thank you very much. Things seem to be working okay.
That last learning session we did, that was pretty entertaining actually.
I haven't watched it.
You haven't?
Not yet. No.
Excuse me, I have to do it.
I do. I will. I have to do it too. I usually watch them twice. I watched them first.
Well, actually, it was
But
funny
this
because
time,
I went back
I had
and
the lady
actually
do
watched
it.
a couple of other ones because of the person X and yeah. So
Okay. So everybody can see that now?
We can see your emails, yeah.
My emails, that's not what you're supposed to be seeing.
Just wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
Yes, thank you. And we'll try to share a different screen. There we go. How about that now? Is that
that looks a little better.
awesome? Glad there was nothing untoward on my emails there. Okay. So thank you for having me to your information meeting today. Again, I'm Jennifer Coppa from 818 Studio. As Kim mentioned, we went for a walk in the freezing cold the other day, and I put together some concepts for you to just to keep you in the loop on the project and how we're getting ahead. So the first element or site is the Hector King Hunter Pioneer Park. 5th Street and 5th Avenue. The entrance is on 5th Street. And the idea is to widen the pathway. Right now, it's only 2 feet wide, which barely allows one person to walk on their own, let alone 2 people side by side. So the idea is to have it, the pathway, the concrete pathway removed and replaced with a 2-meter wide asphalt pathway. This would happen just in the main loop that goes here, and as well up to the community center parking lot. The main loop is the 0.9-meter wide pathway, which is the 2-foot wide pathway right now. And then up to the parking area, it's 1.1 meters. To the little gazebo here, it's already a 1.2-meter sidewalk, so that would remain, and because it's also relatively new. And then the sidewalk to the building and the picnic shelter would also remain. The idea is to have less of an impact, I guess, to minimize the impact on the existing infrastructure in the park. So the pathway would go around the benches on the concrete pads, the memorial benches, and also around the existing lighting fixtures so that those wouldn't have to be moved. And also avoid the sort of the triangular seating area as well. We're also proposing to, of course, extend the wooden bridges to make them wider over the pathway. And then replace the pathway lights with something that matches the benches. So if I go to the next page, we're proposing this bollard light that is black, and it's cast aluminum. It's quite heavy duty. So it would also go with the benches and provide some illumination at night. On this page, we just have an example of a 2-meter wide asphalt pathway, and then a comparison of the width of the pathway right now, which is the 900 millimeters, and then with the proposed 2-meter wide pathway.
You mentioned asphalt. With the trees in the park, are the roots going to cause us grief with asphalt in the future?
Ideally, if the trees are a meter or about 1.5 meters away from the pathway, then they should not interfere with the asphalt pathway.
Okay.
And that's a good comment, Mr. Mayor. It is concrete in there now. That was a suggestion from myself that maybe we look at asphalt, whether it's going to be more expensive to do 2-meter wide asphalt versus 2-meter wide concrete.
Yeah, I was thinking like that stuff we have up in the Winkler Park, the recycled rubber
Yeah, it's not the greatest for
cleaning.
cleaning and even
Okay.
snow removal and stuff like that.
Okay,
So,
no, I just,
so we did throw the idea of asphalt. I think if you're in most newer urban areas, when they're building a trail now, it's asphalted. Concrete, we don't feel we need the strength that anything's driving on it that concrete would bring. So that was kind of the suggestion we were looking at with asphalt. But again, we're at a concept stage. If there was
yeah, no, and that's just,
desire for concrete,
yeah.
that's certainly an option.
So what's the petroleum products do for that? Grass and shrubs and stuff too.
No,
But you got oil in it,
that's not an issue.
not an issue.
No.
yeah, go for a couple of beers.
This is, I'm listening to this, I'm wondering why we would go through the process and the expense of removing the cement that already exists. I mean, is it dilapidated, is it problems with it, rather than extending what already exists there as a cost saving measure?
I don't know, and I'm open for comments. Our thought around it was it's sometimes hard to match up the concrete, so that you don't have
Even,
the seam and the unevenness, and if you've got some movement underneath, then you're gonna have tripping hazard. You're gonna have parts of it lifting that other parts aren't lifting. So that was my thought about it.
And you see that all over on a separate sidewalk for the ship.
Yeah. Yeah, you also see that with asphalt though too, you know what, especially with tree.
But asphalt has a more flexibility in it than concrete, so it can adjust a little bit without noticing. That would be my thought. I don't know if you've got any feedback on that, Jennifer.
Asphalt is like a less costly to install. So, and maintain repairs, I guess, as well. That would be like if you put it just to try to extend the concrete sidewalk right now, you would have to still go around the lights and the benches. So it would be sort of uneven, jagged going around. And also you could have differential settling. And so there would be, it wouldn't provide the even walking surface that seniors would need.
Yeah, no, like I said, tree root, I just visit the golf course, we have some asphalt paths that the trees have gotten the better of them, and they are quite a ways away, just the roots have come up, Jennifer, and problems, so that was my only thoughts and concerns, so carry on, thank you.
Okay, so that is the park. And then the second area is a pathway along Palliser Trail. So starting at the lodge, it would tie in across the driveway from the existing sidewalk and meander along Palliser Trail. New street trees would be planted where there aren't any, because there are some already that were planted about 3 years ago on the south side. And Kim and I discussed putting lights in, pedestrian scale lights along the pathway. This pathway would be a 3 meter wide asphalt pathway, which is the typical width for a regional pathway, both in Alberta and elsewhere across Canada. We would recommend putting bollards at the intersections with the driveways so that people aren't tempted to drive along the pathway with their vehicles. And the driveway aprons right now to I believe it's a provincial building, are paved. And so we would recommend that the driveway apron to this private property would be paved up to their property lines so that there's a level surface that's accessible to get across it. And then the pathway would come to 2nd Avenue, and there'd be a crosswalk across Palliser Trail. Kim and I did not discuss having pedestrian lights there, like flashing lights, but that would be something that we should explore, I believe, to make it safer. And then meander through the park and get a little bit thinner here around this tree so that we can keep that tree and then join up with the existing concrete sidewalk along 2nd Avenue. Kim had suggested having one seating node or rest area along this area, but to really provide, I guess, accessibility for people who are just out for a little walk, or people carrying heavy groceries, we are suggesting 4 different seating areas. Oh, sorry, 5, including the one near the Goose. And I can show you what those look like on the next page. If it's gonna very slowly probably switch over. Wrong way. There we go. So the seating areas could be either one bench that sort of faces the pathway, or it could be a smaller bench, like a half bench that are and have two of them that are facing each other so that you can take advantage of views to the east and the west. And also, so you're not sitting there facing traffic. That could be an option. So the road right of way along Palliser is about 29 feet, so almost 9 meters. So it would have a 3 meter wide asphalt pathway, and then at least 1 meter between the edge of the asphalt pathway and the tree or a light, and then another minimum half a meter to the property line. And then between the pathway and the road, the width would vary depending on where it meanders, I guess. But it would be, I guess the guidelines is that it's a minimum of 3 meters from the roadway. So we would stick within that. So it'd be no closer than 3 meters to the road. And then here's an example of a suggested pathway bollard. And this is the Brandon elm tree, which would be the street tree. And during the engagement last summer, we did talk about, we talked to people about benches and lights. And this is the bench that would be suggested. It's a recycled plastic slat bench that has good durability. The pedestrian scale light, which is dark sky compliant. They're spaced around 14 meters apart right now, but we'd go within, with the suggestions of an electrical engineer for correct spacing, and then also have trash and recycling periodically down the pathway. So I'll go back. Are there any questions about the Palliser Trail pathway?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I'm just wondering about the lighting. Is that enough to illuminate for safety issues and stuff?
Yes.
Okay. And I also had a question about the, you showed the walkway along 2nd Avenue with a bike. That isn't implying that there is going to be a bike lane in there, is that right? No, the next one along.
Yeah, I went the wrong way, sorry. Right.
Yeah, yeah, that's not indicating or suggesting that there will be bikes on there as well.
A 3 meter wide pathway is typically a multimodal pathway, meaning that it could accommodate bikes and rollerblades.
I guess my concern is if it is it's a general public, but if the seniors are utilizing it a lot, could be an issue as far as safety with bikes allowed on there as well. Just a comment.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll find, Councilor Bowden, I think you'll find 3 meters wide is wide. And I think you'll find that, with bikes on it, there still is ample room for others to pass very safely. So it is quite a wide one. I know that that's the new standard that's out there with trails being built, especially for connecting linear trails. But it is a wide trail when it's first laid down. And then when Jennifer said put bollards up for people to drive on it, people will see it as the ability to drive on it because it's wide enough for their vehicles. So
Okay.
I'm not worried about a safety issue in terms of interaction between people walking and bikes and rollerblades and strollers and anything you'll see on that trail. So
There would be, maybe it's just a matter of educating the public that I'm sure that seniors may have concerns regarding bikes being on it if they're on there as well. So just a matter of safety and maybe educating the public whether they're allowed or not and that sort of thing.
Jen, one question about the bench. With the recycled plastic, it does get fairly warm here in the summer. Do they absorb the heat?
It would depend on the color, I believe. Not
Okay.
really. They stay pretty, they're more like wood in that. They're not like the metal that really gets really warm.
Yeah, no, I just, buddy of mine had a recycled plastic deck in the summertime. It was very hot, so that's why I was.
I have some questions on the bench too. Little bit along the mayor's route with the recycled plastic, and it might be a little bit different, but we bought some recycled plastic picnic tables last year, and they did move. So they've got a bow in them. Again, whether it's how it's connected, if the bench is gonna have a tighter connection along the seat, it might not be have the ability to move as much.
What do you mean they moved? Oh, like,
They
yeah.
warped.
Warped.
Oh, they
warped.
warped.
Yeah.
Okay.
The picnic tables probably, you know, you've got slats that are 6 feet wide, they're 6 feet long, so we did have some issues with them last summer. And again, we had a very hot summer, but I think we got a plan that that's gonna be the
New norm.
normal, so. The other thing on the benches, Jen, and it's more just from my perspective, consistency. I know you had in your Hanna, or the community development report, when you first did this stuff, you had these types of benches, but we do already that existing park benches in town. We have 2 different styles, so I just want to know what your thoughts would be if we continue with that same style for consistency. So
No, I think that's a great idea, especially if something happens, then you know exactly what to order. You know, everybody's familiar with it. Yeah.
the
So
other thing we've had a fairly successful memorial bench program. So as you saw in Recreation Hunter, I think all of those benches are memorial benches now. Even there's one that's we're just in the process of having a plaque put on it, but I think all of them are already memorial benches, and I'm just wondering, that might be an opportunity as we move forward, if people want to use one of those benches as a memorial bench, that you know, we've got that opportunity. So
yeah, that's a great idea.
concern was just the consistency of the other benches we have in town along our pathway system, so.
I have a question, too, just in the garden, and Jennifer, it's probably more connected, but lots of the parks that I've been in, we still have those steel kind of rounded edges benches, and they have it's like a composite plastic over it. So it doesn't matter if it's the middle of winter or summer, there's a little bit of warmth, a little bit cold, but not like you're sitting on steel because they're coated. And honestly, that I've seen a lot in a lot of the parks that I've been in over the last 2 months. So I'm wondering if that is something that's obsolete now, that they're not, because they're composite now, they're not using those as much anymore. And some of them have been used for some amount of time, but they're still functional and they look like they're in great shape. So,
See, all of our benches are powder coated. So they're steel, but they're powder coated to prevent rust. So I think that would probably be the standard that most of them would be. I don't know if you see any steel ones anymore for that fact.
well, these ones are covered, like it looks like it's like that liquid plastic covering that's kind of over it. I don't know.
Like a Jeff Paul
That's
goes
kind of like a
down.
powder coat.
Yeah, honestly, that's. what they
So we
look
have it
like,
to
yeah.
visitor center.
I don't know, I'm just curious about the benches, because that composite stuff does have potential to work a little bit, and I've seen it too, so.
So I think here, this is the bench that's at,
We have 2 styles, Jennifer. We have that style that's, I'm gonna call more formal. It has armrests, little more antique or older looking. We do have another style that's more utilitarian, for lack of a better
Good
word.
word, buddy.
With no arms on them and no curves, pretty standard. So we do have a different type as well, and the other type is actually the type that's been out on our existing trails.
So-
It is memorial bench. We do give people the option, so people do prefer this type. We do certainly don't tell them they can't use that type, but the ones that the town put in originally on the trails were more the standard utilitarian type.
And in terms of the use by seniors, arms are definitely needed on the benches.
Never thought of that, Jennifer?
Yeah, they need to get up and down, so arms will be needed. So we can certainly go with this style of bench.
Okay, I like that, yeah.
Okay. And I will try to get back to the right page again. Here we go. So any more questions about the Palliser Trail pathway?
Yeah, one
Counselor
more.
Kroll?
Yeah, go ahead.
Should there not be a crosswalk on Fifth Avenue, 200 or 200 Park?
I didn't.
Here, Fred?
Yeah.
This is, so I guess the thought, Fred, is we do have a crosswalk right here already. It crosses Palliser Trail that they would come across and just follow the sidewalk to. But we could look at putting one in, but that was kind of the thought. We've got one about right here already. That was a split one that they would cross there versus coming down and cross. Here it's a little shorter cross across the road because of the access road. So, but it's certainly something that can be considered.
I know the corner there, Kim, where you had your finger there,
Yeah.
right? Nope, a little further to the north. Right there, that side, nope, right there. That corner is the sidewalk is crap there.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah.
I tried plowing snow on it a couple of times this year. It's not good.
Yeah, no, most of the sidewalks along Fifth and even up here, you know, are definitely in need of some repair.
Yeah.
Replacement. Jennifer can't see my pointing, but I was pointing on Fifth Ave, so.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Jennifer.
No, that's okay. Actually, I could see your pointing.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you're standing up, and that's why I could see you moving around. So I guess one thing I wanted to talk about is the flashing pedestrian lights at Palliser Trail and Second Ave. I know that there are some in town where you push the button and the light goes off and people cross. So is that something that's needed here? Should we explore that, or just a painted crosswalk for now?
You're talking at Second and Palliser.
That's right here.
We got one in stock we can move down there.
Yeah, we got one uptown there.
Yeah. I think
Maybe
there's
then
just one flashing light, but yeah, I think there's lots of people would like to see it relocated, so.
That's what I'm thinking.
So I guess the comment is council feels there should be crossing light there.
Or if we didn't have one considered surplus.
So Jen, I guess
Put one
that's the
there.
thought, we would have put one there.
So, but just one that was relocated from farther down.
The only issue is, I know council's talking about relocating one. It only has one light that flashes, so it wouldn't be a total relocation. So we might be able to use part of it. But at the end of the day, it might be just as easy to have a new set there. That's something we can decide as we move through the process.
Okay.
So just for clarification, are we talking about what we've done up here, is put it in the middle of the road?
No.
No,
Yeah, that was my concern as well, not having that pillar right in the middle of the road, because I think that creates a lot of issues right now and will down the road if that is the.
So the vision, let's all be clear, the vision for Second and Palliser would be sign on either side of the road, one on the east side, one on the west side.
Like the one further up Palliser.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have another question, I guess, in regards to this. How do we decide if there's a real need Like, has there been any analysis done? Has there been any surveying to see whether that is a highly used crosswalk? I mean, I personally go through there often, and I never see people crossing there. I see them crossing further down. So is it necessary
If you're gonna build a trail there, you're gonna encourage people to walk that.
across that area?
The trail will encourage people to be walking there, definitely. So,
Crosswalk.
And it will encourage people to quit walking on the roadway.
yeah. And I think right now, I agree, Councilor Warwick, there's been no analysis done because we haven't had a trail there. But at this point, I know, especially if you see a lot of students or people who have walked from school down to, I'll use the Husky as an example, A&W, they cross wherever they feel like they want to cross. So I don't think there's any direct correlation. If there's a crosswalk there, they may choose to cross there, but they can choose to still cross where they want to cross. But I think if we're trying to encourage seniors to be out and walking, certainly they would probably appreciate that. It would make them feel a little bit safer trying to cross that road. Because it probably is one of our busier roads in town, so.
I just have a quick comment, sorry. And I think being a little bit on the proactive side and getting people used to using that crosswalk, if it's going to be, if this project is going to be done while we have an influx of people in town, it would be nice to have that, just so that there isn't a need after the fact. And there are lots of students that do walk along Second Avenue. I think they cut across the ball diamond or the football field along Home Hardware and down that way, or Super A or whatever. And I think it's just sort of being proactive on having a bit of a safety concern for our general public having it there.
So there's no walkway from the lodge to also trail.
There's nothing to the north right now, no. That would be hopefully a future phase. That would be council control that we could then extend something between Fox Hill Trail and the lodge on the west side, north of the lodge.
Anything else?
Back to you, Jen.
Okay, so the next site is the intersection of 5th Street and 5th Avenue. 2 bump outs are proposed here. One on the northwest corner and one on the southeast corner. They would be designed so that larger vehicles such as pickup trucks towing horse trailers could still make it around the intersections. And then on the opposite corners, there would be painted bump outs to let people know that they need to keep to the vehicles need to keep to the center of the road and provide a little bit of an extra sort of sidewalk or protected area for the people who are crossing to shorten the crossing distances across each of the streets. Each of the bump outs would have curb cuts to allow like wheeled vehicle mobility aids to accommodate to get across easily. And then add some benches for resting and a planter or maybe even some trees, depending on what the underground utilities look like in this area. On the southeast side, this is the end of the sidewalk that goes along Hector King Hunter Pioneer Park. And so instead of bringing the sidewalk straight through, like the reason why it stops, I believe, is because there's a fire hydrant and a big light pole right here. So to use the bump out as sort of a sidewalk extension to get around those utilities in a cost-effective manner, and then tie it into the bump outs. the bump outs, the painted bump outs could be like a community art project or a community volunteer project. And then we would incorporate tactile warning strips on the curb cuts as well. It's just a visual aid for like little kids who are running, you know, hopefully they would stop before getting onto the road, things like that. So this is the only page for this site. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I don't think, like, do we really have that many large trucks going down that avenue? I think most of the large vehicles that would be going, like horse trailers and that sort of thing, would be going down 4th Avenue West by Home Hardware. I'm just not seeing the actual benefit of having to accommodate larger trucks in that sort of route.
I guess that was my comment, Councilor Bowden, is that in my mind, we know that we've got an agricultural community. We know we've got the rodeo. We know we've got this year, for example, we have the 4-H show and sale. So I guess I just wanted to make sure if we were putting bump outs there that they would accommodate that, because I don't think, you know, there is a direct correlation between where people will come from and where they will access the arena. It just provided that option. I didn't want it to be tight that people couldn't, or they started and they got stuck and it was in the middle. So I had advised Jennifer when she was doing it that it needed to be able to accommodate, you know, at minimum the trucks pulling the horse trailers, because I know that area we will see a lot, especially around rodeo time. We'll have horse trailers and trucks parked along 5th Avenue. So
Where does the direction sign to the arena? Is that on 4th Avenue, or does that take them down 5th?
there will be one on 5th Avenue off of Palliser Trail. But I think you could be right, Councilor Bowden, that the majority of them might access it in a different route than 5th, but I think there probably are people who will access it off of 5th as well. So I just wanted to
What about the direction sign being off Palliser Trail? And, you know, for the school as well, right off Palliser Trail, so they're not going through a residential area.
So that's where the signs are, are on Palliser Trail at the intersection of 5th and for the arena and community center, and at 7th for the school.
Do we need both bump outs there? To me, the one to the left is, you know, not a bad thing. The one to the right seems like it's taking up too much of the road and everything. I fail to see why in an intersection like that we need 2 of them.
That's good.
They could.
Go ahead, Councilor Murphy.
That sidewalk coming up from the bottom there, that sidewalk could be brought up and go around to join where that crosswalk's gonna go across, but I don't think you need that bump out in the street there. That's my feeling.
When it turns the corner, there's no sidewalk there. So it seemed, I love the idea of the benches and the crosswalk, and the pathways are fantastic. These are, I don't see any use. I don't think you're gonna see a group of seniors sitting there going, this is a fantastic corner. They're just not gonna use it. I think you need to extend that sidewalk, because it is ridiculous, because it just stops.
And I think the reason, I don't know for a fact why the reason the sidewalk stopped back there. My gut tells me the reason the sidewalk stopped here was the lodge was over here, and if people were coming from the lodge, they were coming across and they could access the sidewalk and counter the park. But no, this is why we want to have this discussion on the bump outs. As you know, in the community development plan, there's talk about bump outs, and the rationale behind them is to reduce the distance that you're traveling on the street to make it safer.
as a suggestion, perhaps, if you took the financial part of the bump outs and took that to make the sidewalks accessible for wheels, because I'd say 3/4 of the town, you can't get onto the sidewalk without lifting yourself, because there's no rolling. So maybe that money could be used to make the sidewalks accessible for people with a stroller or a wheelchair. Just my suggestion.
Well, I'll be different, because I like both the bump outs. I like the idea of
You're allowed.
encouraging people to be outside. If we want to encourage that part to be more use, and more gathering spots. There's a ton of family traffic that goes up and down that road for some reason. There's just a lot of families there, but from grocery stores and
All the time.
school, there's a lot there. The painted bump outs, I think, look ridiculous, and I think they will be maintenance and they will look even more worse as the thing goes unless we repaint them every 2 months. So I'm not a fan of those. I think they look, especially the colors chosen there, just like the carnivals kind of hanging out there. But I like both the bump outs there. I like to encourage gathering spots and to be outside. Any other feedback? So what type of direction are we gonna give Jennifer in terms of bump outs?
Why don't we take the north bump out and extend the sidewalk all the way down to the community center? I'm sure that bump out is about 300 feet sidewalk.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Council Crowe. The other issue, if we put the sidewalk in, we'll probably be cutting into your park area. And I know at the top towards there, we have the fountain. So I don't know off the top of my head what type of distance we have between the curb and but that certainly is an option, Council Crowe, because you're right, there is no sidewalk on that side.
And I mean, there is seniors that use permanent, no.
How possible is it? I do not know exactly what's there. I think to remove trees, but almost move that buffer into the property of the park. There's no gathering spot there. There is probably an option, also, but there is I don't know if you can pull it out there. There is a street light power pole in the corner, and there is a hydrant in here as well. So, other than that, I think the trees and stuff and the shrubbery in that corner are removed into the parking lot. I just know there is a hydrant and I think it's a street light on the corner.
You could cement around the hydrant. The dogs don't have to walk on the grass. I just don't like it stick up in the street. Like that.
So would council be comfortable with having the bump out and on this side and having it recessed into the park a little bit more so it's not as obtrusive out into the street? Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that a potential option, Jennifer?
I guess the purpose of bump outs, or one of the purposes, is to slow traffic. So I don't know if just one would actually slow traffic down that much. In this scenario that's illustrated here, it does create sort of a visual pinch point. It actually doesn't, because the lane widths are wide enough to accommodate traffic, but visually it slows people down.
That is a four-way stop, Jennifer, right now.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully the traffic is stops. How quickly it accelerates is yet to be determined, but so I that's not a concern with that.
I'm just
Yeah, I don't
wondering
think
why
so.
that intersection? Why that one?
Why that?
Why that
Because
intersection?
Because that's why we're trying to encourage the senior traffic. from both the manors, the villas, the lodge.
I'm just thinking fifth and why not fifth and third? Like,
It's the first block that they come to after they're come
Cross.
off Palliser.
Okay.
And I think as far as, in my opinion, seniors is, I think, the most direct route. So I agree with, extending the sidewalk along Fifth Avenue West. And there have been I've heard several complaints about the speed of people traveling on Fifth Avenue West to Fourth and Third. And this could slow it, but yeah, I like the idea of having it more within the park itself. And I really don't think the big trucks are going to be going through there. They'll turn off of the main route and go direct to where they're headed versus spinning around that.
So I guess, Jen, where we're at is if you can look at that a little bit and maybe look at what it looks like recessing that into the park slightly, and I guess go from there. Does that capture where we're at with council?
Yeah. The only thing with sweating the hydrant in is if there's any maintenance to it in here.
Yeah, you're digging it all out.
But you start to pump out effort hydrant too.
No, I'm just, yeah.
Yeah.
You can move that way.
and what was the purpose behind the painted faux bump out things? Just for visual?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just so people know that that's people stop on people could be crossing there and
I don't see any point.
Our weather is so unpredictable. I mean, where would you ever even see it? Right?
well, hopefully you'll see it at least 6 months. But yeah, no, that's why we're having this discussion.
Once you get snow, you're not gonna see it anyway.
And those would be certainly
At least from on
minor in terms of cost, but certainly something that could pull out of the project, so.
So, and I've done this walk a few times, this is where I live. And when I walk up and I turn the corner, you're on the road. So even putting this bump out in, the minute you turn the corner on Fifth Ave West, let's say you're heading to the Centennial Place, you're walking on the road.
Yeah.
For 500 feet, or you have to cross the road, go on the sidewalk, cross back and go over the gravel.
Yeah.
So I would certainly suggest that we keep it going to Centennial Place. Absolutely. That's where you want them to go towards. Right?
Well,
Yeah, I agree.
but once you get to community center, you run into the parking lot, so that's something I guess we could look at, Jen, is the ability to extend the sidewalk on Fifth Avenue West down to the community center and factor that into the project plan.
Okay. Is there a lot of parking? I think I heard that people park on Fifth Avenue, because if there's already parking lot east of here that goes right up to the curb, then there is an option to put a sidewalk, I would think, on the road.
Either that, or I'm even wondering, Jan, it'd be a little bit different, but whether we versus concrete sidewalk, whether we made that a smaller asphalt path on, tied in with the curb that's there now and just running to the other asphalt at the community center parking lot.
It's safer.
Yeah, you're right. There is no, I won't say there's a ton of parking there. I guess it truly depends on what's happening in our recreation block. If we have our rodeo and other events, there's definitely park. If we have stuff in Hector King Hunter Park events, people will park there. So there is some parking there, not on a general day-to-day parking. It would be minimal, but when we have events in that area and in that park, it's certainly people will park along that street. So
I have a comment. I think if you could put it into the Hector King Hunter Park, then you're not interfering with the side or the width of the road. And with parking along that Fifth Avenue West is all the more reason to have a sidewalk, because people still walk along that road, whether the rodeo is on or whatever. And it's just a little more safer if they're off the road, people can see them. Anyways, if they're off the road and instead of having to walk along the actual lane where, you know, their normal walkway is taken up by parking. And if it's moved within Hector King Hunter Park, then it has less impact on the road itself, if possible, even and having to accommodate the fountain that's there.
So I think that's what we'll try, Jen, if you can go back and put that in the scope of the concept plan. And again, at the end of the day, when we get this out and we get it tendered and the price comes back in, we know we have a pocket of dollars we have to work with. So at that point in time, council may have to make some decisions on,
Sacrifices.
yeah, okay, if we have to cut something, what would be the first thing we would cut? And go from there. But, you know, we don't know that until we get the tender back in terms of prices. So there might be some things that will have to be, that even it might be designed in that we'll have to go without based on costs. So.
Yeah. What I would recommend for this is to do a trial of a painted bump outs on these corners, just to see how it works within the community. Like, you might find that people love it, you know, and it does provide a shorter crossing distance for seniors, because they could probably feel that they could wait in the painted area safely, and then it's not so exhausting to walk across the road. So I would suggest that this would be a good sort of testing ground for trialing these painted bump outs, because it's not that expensive to buy some paint.
I think there's gonna be have to be a whole education around that.
Well, we
Because I
got
know
to-
as an individual, I'm not gonna step off my sidewalk and step into that colored area when I know traffic, you know. I mean, it's just an indication that has to happen. I can't even imagine that some of our seniors and others, you know, students are, you know, walking down there a lot, are gonna stand out into the street in a colored area like that versus standing on the sidewalk. I guess it's just what we know,
Yeah.
Four-way stop,
right?
traffic has stopped.
And what was the color, are we looking at like, I think the color scenery is stuff. Like, are we looking like one solid color around there, or are we looking at like sort of that color scheme that's there, like the white, the blues, the reds, the yellows? Is there a standard for that, or?
Nope, I would suggest that it's comes from the community. Like, you open this up for people to suggest designs, and then volunteers to go and paint it. It takes about a day to paint.
Okay, let's move on, Jen. We'll have further discussion on that, I'm sure, as we move forward.
Okay, and this is the sidewalk along Fifth Avenue and the little service road beside Palliser Trail that comes from the Hanna Lodge, the existing crosswalk just north of Fifth Avenue. The design intent is to widen the sidewalk. Right now, it is quite narrow, as shown up at the top. I think that, you know, the standard might have been 4 feet, the 1200 millimeters, but with the rolled curb, it reduces the actual walking surface to 900 millimeters. This suggestion would be to either extend the walking surface with the rolled curb, or to implement square curbs. So right now at the corner right here, this round part is a square curb. This is a rolled curb along the service road, and then it varies along Fifth Avenue. There's some squared and some rolled. This would maintain the curb where it is and increase toward the property line the width of the sidewalk. So that depending on whether the rolled curb is kept or the squared curb, it would be, either 6 inches down here, 6 inches, or a foot extra of sidewalk, which is all on town property, but getting close to the property line.
So the challenge here, like any challenge, is you're trying to make changes in already existing area. So along Fifth Avenue West, we all know that the property line is inside in people's front yards. So if we go to encroach into their yard, some of them may have, even though it's legally town property, some people may have issues with that and not be happy that we're doing that. I know along there it's pretty good. I know Dr. Castor has a retaining wall where he's at that is right with the sidewalk, right? So we were going to be encroaching into the sidewalk, and obviously the retaining wall would have to be moved and relocated. Some people will have some planters or flower beds that would be pretty much out there. Most of it though is just front lawn, so you'd be taking, a foot of that front lawn away if you wanted to widen the sidewalks there versus, widening out a foot into the street.
It's pretty narrow there, yeah. I don't know if I'd suggest a street, sure. Pretty narrow. But
Well, it
that
is-
part of Fifth Ave, yeah.
It is in a, for probably the west half, but once you get to where the old lodge property was, there is a indent that was put in to create street parking. So the street is actually wider for about the east half of that block.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the challenge with fixing up the sidewalks in that area will be, we'll have to have some communication with those existing property owners and see what their feedback is. I'm sure council is going to want to hear that as we move forward, so. Any other comments, concerns? I have already told Jennifer my thoughts on not having any benches along there because I don't think any of our residents would be pleased with having a bench there and having people sitting there, but I guess that was just my initial thoughts on it, but so that's kind of was the plan on Fifth Avenue. As the mayor suggested, the sidewalks in that area are in need of repair replacement, so it's not like they're new sidewalks we're ripping up and doing. They will eventually need to be repaired or replaced over the next few years anyway. So.
And I do want to suggest with the benches, should you choose to go a different route, you could sell or rent the backsplashes of all of those benches to businesses, and that's a source of income for the town by advertising on the bus benches. I did it in Strathmore to all of the benches there, and it was very popular. And it was a 1-year cycle, so you got to keep it in, and then it'll go up to do it again.
I could see those on the benches on Powell's Trail.
Yeah. Any of the busy streets.
Yeah. Any other comments? Dan, do you have any further questions or comments from us?
I guess just, I assume that everybody wants to keep with the rolled curbs in this area.
Yeah, I don't know.
Access, as long as every roadway, when you hit a roadway, there's a bold curb, but the rest of it.
Or
doesn't have-
handicap or wheelchair.
Yeah, a ramp
Or driveway.
or a driveway.
I don't know if there's any preference, Jen, to be honest. Whatever, probably, in my mind, I'm not sure what you called it, but the square curve requires less space.
Mhm.
So I think that's a positive for it,
Mhm.
versus the roll curve.
Okay, during engagement last year, everybody seemed very keen on the rolled curbs.
I was gonna say with the squared curb, though, back to Councilor Murphy's comment, it is very restrictive.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're scooting down there with your cart or whatever you want to call it, mobility assistance, that square curb is pretty square. It's pretty scary, I think.
Well, there would be curb cuts at
Yeah,
here.
no, what I'm saying, Jen, if you were going down though and veered off for whatever reason, square cut curb is a, you know, a 4 or 6 inch drop. Where roll curb, you just,
It's a gradual drop.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that was my concern as well, is if you're in a wheelchair or in a scooter and you happen to veer off or something, you're gonna tip over. Maybe, maybe not, but less likely on a rolled curb.
Okay, any other comments? I guess, Jen, we're probably looking at the roll curve then in our design.
Okay. Yep. I think those are all my questions.
Anything else before Jennifer leaves us?
I think it looks great. I think you've done
Yeah.
a lot of good work and it looks wonderful. And the trees along Palliser Trail, you've indicated which ones there are more suitable for our area, correct?
That's right.
And I think there's 9 trees that are already there. I was, that was a project I had last term, and there's 9. I think you've got 8 in there. Not sure if that makes any difference, but just.
Yeah, those were just approximate because that's not the survey data. The survey data just came in. So they're all mapped. Don't worry.
Thank you. No worries.
That being said, Jen, Council, would like to thank you for your presentation again, and need a motion to that effect.
Sure.
Councilor Murphy, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, Jen.
Okay, thanks.
No public presentation. Who's this CAO guy? Yeah, I see he's got quite a list there for us.
Well, not bad.
Yeah.
So I want to check everybody's calendar. So we had talked about June 3rd.
You're there.
Rhonda being one of the staff people who would get a long-term award, and a long-term award, is unable to be there. Her granddaughter's grad is that night. So, and I know Councillor Warwick and potentially Councillor Kroll have a conflict with that evening. So I had suggested Wednesday, June 29th. Does that date work for?
My daughter's conversation that night.
So you're definitely gonna be at the barbecue.
I'm definitely not even.
So we've got to get up early that morning and stay up late. It's an info session.
Yes.
I won't be there in the story.
Anybody else that date work?
I'm fine.
Yeah, but
I'll have it at 1:30.
Well, the reason I have it on the 29th is we have a number of our staff who are firefighters, and Wednesday is practice night, so they don't have once that we have five Wednesdays, so that Wednesday is open. Everybody else okay with it? Councilor Kroll? Okay, okay, that's probably the one we'll go with then, so mark that in your calendar. We'll get an invite out to you for that. Swimming pool lesson registration, so I just want to touch base on that a little bit. So those of you who have registered your kids or your grandkids or whatever for swimming lessons know our past tradition of doing it has been, we pick a date, usually in around mid-May, and we say at 1 o'clock, we will start accepting registrations. Especially in our COVID time, people would line up almost like a concert to get there, wait in line. We've always talked about making it more accessible, making it easier electronically and online, but we always have that discussion, you know, too close to the registration time to make that change. So this year we probably still a little tighter than we hoped, but we have changed the process. So those of you who are on our electronic newsletter would have received notice Monday night that we were changing swim lesson process. So now if you want to register for swim lessons, you can register as we speak. You can download the form. It's a printable one. You can print it out, send it to us along with your e-transfer, your payment, and we will register you in the summer swim lessons. We were quite surprised. We sent out the newsletter on Monday night, and by Tuesday morning, we had 3 families had registered for swim lessons. And I think during the day yesterday, we got quite a few more during the day. We've also let also basically as of Monday, between the hours of 10 and 2, we will have our manager on site who can take registrations for people who want to pay in person and do that. So we're moving forward. So far, it's worked out well. And as of Monday, people can go in and between 10 and 2 and register in person as well. And the other transition we're going through at the pool is Red Cross is getting out of teaching lessons. So after I don't know how many years of being in swimming lessons, they are transitioning out this year. We had the option to continue to do Red Cross lessons this year and transition next year. We made the decision to transition this year because there is lots of opportunities for no cost transitioning of our lifeguards and our staff into the life-saving program. So there is some changes in that. I don't have any doubt the life-saving program is a good program. We use their lessons for the Bronze Cross, the Bronze Medallion, the Nationals, all that stuff is life-saving. They have had this program running. The big difference is they only have 6 levels of, we call them swimmers. So up to 6, whereas Red Cross was swim kids up to 10. So there is a conversion chart that people can look at that says, okay, if I pass swim kids 6, that corresponds to swimmer 5 or whatever. And so, but I know we've had some questions around that, especially people who don't know where their kids, what level they were at, or if their grandparents, what level their grandkids were at. So we are transitioning. Keep us in the loop if you hear any feedback from people that you know, don't like it, want some changes. We're open to make some changes. This is our first kick of the cat. So, but I know yesterday it worked quite well. I don't know. I looked last night. I think we've had $1,200 in lesson registrations yesterday. So, so we just wanted you to know that we were doing that. Nothing really to update on the electrical vehicle chargers. The grant is submitted. It's in. I'm not sure timeline on the process to whether we get approved or not. Fox Lake Campground, we are going to, the plan is that we will open the gates on Friday of this week, turn the power on. So there will be power available and people will have access to the sites. No shower house, no water until we technically will open on May 13th with our caretakers there. Hopefully by then the weather's settled down and we can be comfortable turning the water on. I had a call with one of the contractors who will be out working on the wind projects, and I'm not sure with which company or what, but their timelines have been slowed up a little bit. They initially thought they'd be starting their work on May 1st, and now it's pushing more towards May 15th. So there might not be as much of an urgency as there was, but we're gonna open it up and we'll see if there's 3 trailers come, if there's 20 trailers come, we'll deal with it from there. So, not much to the same caretakers as last year. We have the same caretakers. The Derbyshires will be the caretakers again this year. They are scheduled to be there for May 13th. And we'll be there until September 13th, somewhere in that mid-September. So yeah, we had a very good year with them last year. So we were pleased that they were interested in returning. So I think they'll have a little different look than they did last year because their daughter, I don't think is going to be as involved as she was last year. So, but yeah, we're looking forward to that. And May 13th, they're scheduled to be good.
I just want to add in
The manager this year is Hayley Nelson. So Hayley has worked at her pool for a number of years. This is her first year as manager. Our manager last year, as I always said, grew up and got a real job and was a teacher this year. So, but that's Hayley started and done some work already, helping us out with some registration stuff and getting stuff going. Typically, we wouldn't bring them in as early as we did, but this year, with the transition and with Hayley being new and with Gwen not being available and part of the process, we wanted to make sure that we didn't drop any balls. So yeah, Hayley started and been putting in, half days here for the last week or so. So the only other thing I wanted to add goes back to our discussions about GFL and about the issues out at fertilizer blending plant. So I did get contact with Alberta Environment. So I have touched base with 2 individuals with Alberta Environment. One gentleman who was involved with the approval process, setting the approvals, and one gentleman who's involved with the compliance enforcement side. So hopefully they are going to come. I'm hoping to our next council info meeting. And I just basically wanted them to come, and in my discussions with them, we want you to come and explain the approval, what's in the approval, what's supposed to be done, what's supposed to be not done, what their expectations of the site is, and what their role is in terms of complaints, compliance, etc. So I think both individuals I talked to with Alberta Environment were on the same page as council. They want to mitigate any issues. They want to make sure that the community's satisfied with the way it's being operated. I know the guy on the compliance side has said he hasn't had a complaint in quite some time. And he said, with his understanding of the situation, is there is a 1-800 number you call and complain, and any complaints in those particular areas are to be sent to that individual. He has had some, and he's dealt with them, and he's been dealing with GFL. In regards to compliance, they're like anyone else. They don't want to be heavy-handed. But their tactic of last resort is they have the option to shut down the operation. I have said to them that GFL has made some improvements in terms of their operation since they started up last fall, in terms of the size of their piles, in terms of when they operate. Is it still perfect? I don't believe it's still perfect. I'm still waiting, and I haven't been out that way, but I haven't seen or heard anything about the new shed, the new structure that's coming where they will blend their material. And I am optimistic that that will solve a lot of the issues. But certainly they were both very, very good to talk to, more than willing to come out and have discussions with council in terms of what their expectations are on the operation, and answer any questions council may have of the operation. Just want to be clear, in their approval as it sits right now, there is no requirement from Alberta Environment for air quality monitoring. So there's soil and water requirements that they must follow, but there is no air quality at this point in time. So
I see that they've done some, they've built a berm around it, a big berm, and they've also put some loose trees within the last week.
no, I know that specifically the neighbors across the highway have, or from what I can tell, the biggest challenge, the biggest issues, and I respect those issues. I think GFL has been making improvements. I think whether they're making those improvements because they're being pushed to make those improvements, is a little bit frustrating that they're not making those improvements just to make those improvements and be good, good neighbors. But that's one of the challenges I think we'll have as we continue to move forward. But I can't say that they have not made any improvements or are not trying to mitigate, whether they're trying to mitigate this quickly and to certain levels, that's yet to be determined. So, but hopefully we can have that opportunity to have a good discussion with them, and council can get their questions answered and work with the AEP, because I said that we have to have an open line of communication between them and us as we move forward on this plan. So I just wanted to let you know that I have had that discussion this week with a couple of individuals, and it went very well. And if there's any questions about that or anything else that's going in town, by the way.
What's the process of changing stop signs review inside? What's the standards, particularly the west end of 12th Ave on the council? I've been quizzed on that several times over the past years.
So
It's a stop sign right there to downgrade that to a real sign. There's the rules going on.
I think that would be a decision of council. Quite frankly, if council action that they want
It
to
is such an
change.
open intersection. You can see clearly.
It is, I guess.
There's worse intersections.
I guess my only thought on it, Councilor Olson, is it is a key intersection. And the other comment I have is I know it's right in the transition zone from 80 to 50. So you still have, and we know how people travel when the speed limit's 80.
They can see it.
They're going 90 or 100, but certainly that would be a prerogative of council if there was a request. If that was a request or council also at a council meeting.
Yeah,
wish
I
to
can bring up the council.
make a motion that it be changed from a stop to a yield, that would be.
The transition is further away, because it's not 50 to the wall.
No,
It is.
No, it's not.
Not quite.
About,
Well,
I would say
halfway.
150 meters up from that corner is where the sign is.
Yeah.
Because that's perfect target off of number 12 T-box. To not be in the water.
So, but we know it's an open
Oh, you
area,
need
and
a
I guess
bigger
that's, my concern, it's an open area, people are probably doing 100, and I don't think they even really slow down until they get to 12th Avenue or close to 12th Avenue. And I think if you had somebody out there monitoring speed, even between 12th and Fox Lake Trail, I don't know if you'd have, I think you'd have a higher percentage of people that would be over the speed limit than under the speed limit.
I think Palliser in general, you'd have that.
Yeah. So, but that would be the process, Council. Any other questions? Comments?
The bench you mentioned, you said you got one coming, is that the one for
Bench.
the bench? You said you've got one ordered, they're waiting to put the name tag on?
No, it's not that one, Councilor Campy. We actually, their supply chain issues with benches, so.
There's one coming there.
So we've actually got three that have been paid for memorial benches that we are awaiting their delivery. The one I was talking about is in there now, and well, it wasn't in there now. Daryl Sidden has approached me off and on, looking for a memorial bench for his wife. So he was very good. Daryl's comment was there was a bench in 1500 Park that wasn't spoken for, didn't have a name tag on it. And it would be one if you're coming from the community center parking lot, headed west into the park. When you got to the Y, you turned left. There was one just there. It was more of our utilitarian one. It's not the old fashioned one with the arms. Daryl really liked that location, thought that'd be a good location. He was willing to put his money towards a new bench. So he put his $1,500, which we charge for a new bench. He paid that. What the rec guys did was those ones didn't have the cutout in the bench to allow for the plaque. But Kevin said we had one out at Fox Lake that he thought had the cutout in it, so they swapped the benches. So Daryl was happy with that. So that's the one we're just waiting for. They've taken the plaque to get it engraved, and we haven't got it back. It'll go in, but we do have 3 memorial benches that are on order to be delivered and installed. So
Is Archie's one of them then?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to thank CAO Neil for doing the questioning on GFL and the environment. It just seemed kind of unusual that one of the presenters from GFL was the one that mentioned that they did actually have the air quality sensor system in the agreement. So thank you for checking that out. And we find that it's not there. Thank you.
And just between, just anecdotally in discussions with Alberta Environment, one of their challenges and reasons for not, I think, having that as part of the approval is they feel that the minimum standards for the product is not going to be met. Even if you had them up there, they might register something, but it's going to fall below their required numbers. And the other challenge they said that you run into is if you have them outside the area, you run into, especially out here, you run into road dirt, field dirt, anything that's going will be captured by these air quality machines. So, but it's a perfect question and a perfect time to have that discussion with them and whether that's an option that they will then ask for the approval to be amended. So that's it, Mr. Mayor. No further questions, comments. We'll move on.
Your town signage, how to speak over that, but
Good. Yeah, so we again, working with Jen, the signage project that we're moving forward on will come back to council. Basically, the direction we've given Jen is We did have wayfinding signage in the community development report. So we basically said we want to move forward with that signage. We want to move forward with signage on our facilities and green spaces and stuff. A lot of places we've said we want to incorporate what's there. So for example, the town office has signage on both sides up above. We're not reinventing the wheel. We'll put the new look, the new logo, that stuff will go in there. Same with the swimming pool, the arena, whatever we can facilitate that, we will. So I've asked her to bring forward a plan there. The biggest challenge on the signage is going to be entrance signs. We don't refer to that much in the community development report. And you can go from A to Z in terms of what your entrance signage is going to look like and what the cost for your entrance signage is going to be. Whether it's similar to what it is now, whether it's steel, whether it's electronic, whether like you can go, yeah, concrete, you can go whole hog. So we're gonna have this. I've asked Jennifer to spend some time pulling up different ideas, and I said we'll have to have that discussion with council. Again, it's one of those, we have a pocket of dollars that the feds have provided that we need to work within that pocket. So if our entrance signs, and whether we want to change our entrance signs to have maybe a major, bigger, more costly one at the west entrance of town, and maybe the one on the east and the one coming in off 36 are smaller facsimile. Right? So we'll have to definitely bring that part back for council's review and approval. But the wayfinding signage and the stuff that will go on our facilities will be pretty much what we'll discuss during the park project. So does that answer?
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can I just make a suggestion as sort of a future, when we bring dates to the table to make decisions that, we want to have, sort of a collaborative, all of us present, that we could bring 2 dates to the table, because I'm finding that with some of the dates, we're getting 1 date, whether it's working, when we're coming back and we decide, if we could have 2 dates when possible, so that we can make a decision on what works best for the majority of the council. I know just with the other organizations that I've worked with, we often do that too, is when it's possible. It's not always possible, but we bring 2 dates and then we can decide that, whether it works.
So in regards to what Councillor Warwick, I guess.
Well, just different things, like even with tours, with just different things like that. I'm finding dates, and of course, then we're talking about them when we don't work for some, we work better. And just if we had an option of a second date, and maybe it would be a date that everybody could be present for.
So yeah, I look at our tours. I look at our tours, and I look at our things like our barbecue, kind of a little bit different than council meetings. Obviously, we've got our 2 council meetings
I'm not talking about
set, but anything
that.
outside of that, sure, yeah, no, we can look at making that.
We could have another option.
We try to work, except for some of those tours and stuff, we do try to work within the existing 2 dates that council has approved, because hopefully they're able to continue to make those dates work. It's always a challenge, but it's not necessarily, I tell people all the time, if we're moving forward, if we need to have a special council meeting somewhere in between the 2 we've got set, that we're open to that. And if we got into that type of situation, Councilor, we would try and give you as many options as we could, trying to get obviously all 7 members there. So
It's a challenge. We're all busy.
yeah, no, it is. It is. It is.
Yeah.
On the note of dates and barbecues, I've had a handful of people ask about another newcomers
Okay,
barbecue.
good.
It'd be cool to see that started.
We are getting a pile of new people.
Yeah.
Good comment, Councilor Olson. I did have a brief discussion with Michelle Page, just about, maybe getting her head wrapped around finding a date and wanting to explore doing that. I agree. The last one we did, the only one we did, I guess would have been probably 3 years ago. That was pre-COVID. We did try to tie it in with the fall registration fair, and I guess that was more my push. I wanted to see if we could have the newcomers there, not necessarily because they have kids or whatever. I just wanted them to be able to see all of the things that happen in our community. But it was a very busy, hectic night, and we were reduced into the small West room. And but I do believe it's a good idea, and we do have a lot of new people in town. So what we did last time was we looked through our utility records, tried to identify any changes in the 18 months before, and then sent them individual letters. So I thought it went quite well for the first time. It was rushed. We were in a small area, but I think we definitely would want to look at that. So that's something I'd put on Michelle's radar to start looking at. And then again, that would be when we come back to council with some dates and times to see what would work best. So, but yeah, I thought it was well worth it. And I think with the number of new people that have moved to our community in the last few years, I think it could be very large event.
Yeah, I hope so.
I can bring that up with the community service board, but it's not till the end of May, so.
No, I
but it
had
will.
had a brief discussion with Michelle about looking to schedule something and plan something like that. We didn't make it a big fancy thing. I think we served hamburgers and had some salads and desserts, and it was pretty informal. But the interesting part and the nice part about it is we did ask each one of them to speak up and tell us a little bit about themselves, why they moved to Hanna. And I still remember Councillor Olson's comment, because all of the comments from the people that moved here were very positive. Councillor Olson's comment was, I wish we had some of our longtime residents here to listen to how positive the new people have appreciated the community. So
That being said, like with the uniqueness with the Purelator, FedEx, DHL, Highway 9 depot, the people are coming to town. We had a couple of day before yesterday, moved here from Medicine Hat, and basically just tired of the rat race, and it has everything you need. And I went, holy cow, that's awesome to hear. Like you said,
It was amazing to hear, to sit there and hear people look
praise.
at council and say, taxes are good.
Yeah.
That was,
Oh, yeah.
that was a common theme. That's never
Well,
a common theme.
taxes, safety, security,
School system.
yeah, a lot of positives.
I was that guy 22 years ago, by the way.
Yeah, now you're over there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's the feedback has been just phenomenal from just everyone, as far as what we have and what we offer, and yeah, so we're even the colonies are starting to come back to town a little more than they did in the past, so we must be doing something right, the businesses, so which is good.
I think that's kind of nice, positive feedback that our existing community would benefit from hearing. And it'd be nice to be able to take some of the comments from the newcomers and put it out into some sort of, I don't know, media or whatever, even on the town Facebook, that is information coming from locals if they're willing to provide it. Coming from our new locals, so that our existing guys can also kind of benefit from it.
It is, Mr. Mayor, before we roll into
Should I
the
say take a quick
budget
10-minute break?
adjustments, does anybody need
10 minutes, 5 minutes?
I always say 5 because that.
I know, we'll go for a recess at 10:04.
Then leave at 11, so.
Okay. What you got on the baby guy?
Yeah, the breathing test.
Oh,
Only supposed to be in June. I gotta get back to Calgary before dark. It's 2-hour drive. She lives quite away. Didn't make me walk back and forth from the beach. And so,
Yeah, it is truly amazing, Kim, though, that the number of people have positive, and it's just,
It's refreshing.
it is very, it's, yeah, like I said, the couple of us, they actually moved up to Scapa. And, of all places in the world to move, and I said, like, I have to, it's so quiet. It's so, and Hannah's not.
Sent to you, so we all have a good understanding of where we're at. So when we approved the budget in December, to balance the budget, we needed a transfer of $16,318. So the revised budget at this point, and that initial 60,000 was the wrong number. I think it's 63 something, 63,967 is what would be required to balance the budget as it sits now with these changes. And we'll go through the changes. If council's okay with the changes, that's great. If council wants to make some adjustments to that, that $63,000 number will come up or come down depending on what decisions are made. So as we talked about, we now have our assessment in. Our assessment levels overall have increased by 275,000. But our residential property assessment increased by 985,000. And our non-residential increased by 1.4 million. And our exempt decreased by $181,000. So that's where you get the $275,000 increase in assessment. So now this will be the first time we've talked about tax rates with this council. So generally, you take your assessment, you use a tax rate, and that creates the amount of money that you generate through taxes. So with the decrease in residential assessment, if the town wanted to bring in the same amount of revenue residentially as they did last year, we would have to increase the tax rate. We're recommending right now that we not increase the tax rate. The tax rate would remain the same as it was in 2021. The municipal tax rate is 11.1225. What that means is we would bring in about 10,000, just under $11,000 less taxes in residential. So predominantly, most residential taxes would go on the general municipal side would go down unless your assessment went up more than others. So I couldn't sit here and say 100% your municipal taxes aren't going to go up, because if your assessment went up significantly for one reason or another, your taxes would go up. On the non-residential side, we know that our assessment went up. So on the non-residential side, if we leave the tax rate at the 2021 rate, which is 14.2554, it would bring in about $20,500 more than it did in 2021. So if we don't change either tax rate right now, it will be a result of us bringing in $9,600 more in taxes than we did in 2021. So does everybody follow that? Okay. So now I want to go through some of the budget adjustments. So as we look through the municipal tax revenue, there's that $9,000 we would bring in additional dollars from the December budget. Our school tax revenue would increase by $2,900. So we get told from the province how much we need to bring in, how much of it needs to be residential, how much of it needs to be non-residential. So we would have to increase the school tax rate by 0.0357 for residential, and we would decrease by 0.1085 for non-residential, because they ask for specific amounts to come from each class. But overall, it's pretty close to what we brought in. 2021, we were at 668,000, so $2,900 more. Acadia Requisition, so the requisition from Acadia has gone up. So last year, the operating requisition was 89,801, and in 2022, requisition is 106,649. So tax rate will need to be increased by 0.0729, both residential and non-residential, to bring in that requisition amount. Yeah.
Just the school tax revenue, we collect that and pay that directly. We don't
Correct.
keep
We don't
that.
keep, no, we don't keep any of that. So,
Okay.
so the 600, basically the province has said to us, we need to collect $671,688. So every dime we get from that, they
Take
pay
away.
them quarterly, it goes back up. Concession and franchise agreement. So looking at that and looking at what our actuals have been through January, February, we're comfortable increasing the amount in our budget by 24.6. We're not increasing the rates that will be charged. It's just, I think we've all heard the out on the street, the cost of utilities, well, transmission. Our franchise fee is based on total revenue generated. So if they increase their transmission and distribution charges, we get the benefit of that on our franchise. So we haven't changed any of our percentages, but we feel comfortable that we're going to get at least another 24.6 on top of what we budgeted. I think you might have heard or seen the city of Calgary, through their franchise fee, they generated $47 million more than they anticipated. They would operate under the same system as us on general revenues generated by these utilities. We bumped the budget up by 24.6. There's that amount drawn from surplus as it sits that we would need to draw to balance the budget. So just going through, and some of the numbers are very small, but police faced an increase in the fine revenue, again, a 3-year average. We bumped the budget up by $300. The firefighting fees, we bumped up by 10.5. Again, that's a 3-year average. By law enforcement, decrease in business license fees, again, a 3-year average. Common services, the 18.9 that we're bringing in would be drawn from deferred revenue, and that was to complete the Public Works Complex backup generator project. So we didn't get it fully spent in 21. So this would be dollars that had previously been budgeted and not spent. And, that will finish that project off. Airport, decrease in the suite rental. It's been vacant since March 1st. We do anticipate it being rented by July 1st, possibly earlier than July 1st. And we're looking at increasing the rental rate from $600 to $700 a month. The rental rate includes electricity, natural gas. So with the increase in utilities, we just felt it was fair to bump that up a little bit because the costs of those are going up. So again, changes to the airport. We have a cost share agreement with special areas, so they would increase their contribution to us based on our net cost. Water, again, slight, again, 3-year average. FCSS, we increased the program revenue. And so these numbers, just so I'm clear, are changes from what was in the December budget. They're not total numbers, they're changes to that. So in FCSS, we bumped up the program revenue by $1,000. Partly we didn't have much in there. We had $1,000, and I think just through the Tyler Smith event that we ran, we probably generated $1,000 in ticket sales. So we are drawing 14,000 from deferred revenue. So 11,850 was from Alberta Health Grant that the Wellness Committee's been allocating dollars to. Music in the Park, we had the donations last year, and this was left over, not spent last year. And again, we had some money donated for our dinner dialogue donation, wasn't spent in 2021. So we plan on doing those, bringing those dollars forward from deferred revenue. Commercial office building, just an increase from the operating surplus to offset the expense increase in utilities. Tourism, we did have $1,200 for tent card revenue. We aren't doing the tent card program this year. Business and communication, we're drawing $3,000 we set aside in deferred revenue to assist with the electronic sign repair. So we used to have a service agreement annually. Basically, I think it got to the point where the sign was too old. They didn't want to have a service agreement with us. So the initial year, we put the cost of the service agreement into reserves in case we needed to do anything. We've, knock on wood, been able to survive probably three or 4 years, maybe 3 years without any repairs. But when we get to the expense side, you'll see there is an expenditure on the electronic sign to get it operable again. Currently, it's not operable. Subdivision, this $154,000 is just basically the dollars that hadn't been spent on the project that had been budgeted previously. The project is now complete, and that's the amount we would need to drop forward. Recreation on the next page. Decrease in the federal employment grants. They've reduced their compensation by 25%. So normally on federal employment grants, they would pay 50% of minimum wage, which in our case is $7.50 an hour. During COVID, they bumped it up to full. So we were getting $15 an hour. Then last year they dropped it to 75%. Now they dropped it back down to 50. So, but I also found a new grant with provincial employment that we are going to be able to get $6,100 from. We've added the Canada Community Revitalization Grant. So the senior amenities zone improvements that we just talked to Jennifer about, that's the amount that are contributing to that project. And we've drawn from deferred revenue for the memorial benches we talked about earlier. We have 3 benches that have been paid for and ordered, haven't been delivered, but we will have to pay the supplier in 22. So we brought that money forward so it matches the same year. Marina, just looking at what we've collected, advertising revenues, so that's through our boards, wall signs, board signs, and on the ice, we think we're going to be down $2,700. On the other hand, looking at what our actuals were for revenue brought in at the arena January to March, we believe we can increase the rental revenue we had in the budget by $2,600. Hector King Hunter, we got a donation in 2021 from the Hector King Hunter Park Association. They were disbanding. So they have $15,000 in their bank account that they turned over to the town. Last year, we just put that into reserves. So this year, as part of the sidewalk widening and having to match, we're pulling up 15 out to go as part of the matching on that project. So we pull that out of the reserve. COVID, again, an increase in rental revenue, just kind of based on actuals January through March. Now that we have no COVID restrictions, use has picked up in the facility, and that will reflect in revenue as well. Same with community center. That increase of 17 will bring us back to kind of our typical average pre-COVID revenue. And the Lions Hall, we bumped it up again. We haven't operated the Lions Hall in a year that isn't COVID yet. So, but just based on the numbers that we've got brought in to date, we feel comfortable increasing that by $1,200. So those are our revenue adjustments to the budget. On the expenditure side, council, I don't have anything in here for council. There's no changes to the council budget. What council approved in December still works, fits. There's no changes required there. But under administration, so we've got a decrease of travel subsistence of training of $3,700. That's primarily conferences that would have been attended that were canceled still due to COVID and not being held. Our workers' compensation rate has increased, so we've got an increase in workers' compensation. We've increased professional services by $5,800 for cloud storage backup, Microsoft license fees, and computer assistance. We've increased, and we'll see this across the board on when we talk about power and gas. So when we initially did our budget in December and approved it on natural gas, we provided a 5% increase to the three-year average, not knowing that transmission and distribution charges were going to change. We were trying to, we knew there would be a carbon tax increase. So, and we do have a retail, fixed retail price on our natural gas consumption until the end of 22. So there's no change there. Power though, we entered into a new agreement as of January 1 for the retailer, and there was an increase from our previous agreement, so we thought the 10% might cover that, but then with some transmission distribution increases, we bumped up our power costs from 10% increase over the 3-year average to 25%.
With the Apex upgrades that are going on and ongoing.
Yeah.
Will there be an increase in fees?
I don't believe so, Mr. Mayor. I know people struggle, and I say this all the time, I know people struggle with their transmission and distribution charges on their natural gas and their electricity bills. But the way I look at it is, they are costly, they are expensive, and they are hurting people, but those utilities are fully funded. So they need to replace a gas line. They've got the money sitting there, they don't have to do that. I look at our utilities, and our utilities are not fully funded. So we rely on grants, we rely on getting as much lifespan as we can out of them. But if we had to replace 25% of the water and sewer lines in town, we wouldn't have the dollars. We don't have that sitting aside. Needless to say, our utility fees are certainly more political. And I think if we went to increase our utility fees for water and sewer to cover what to be fully funded, none of us would be here. You know, and the price would be crazy. The natural gas and electricity, a little more removed, they're able to shift and move that. Although it's interesting with the number of people complaining about their utility fees, whether the province will step in. And I know they're looking to set in a rebate program and do other things, but
Well, I just,
yeah, no, I don't.
it's a question that's been presented. So
I
I-
don't anticipate that, Mr. Mayor. When we did they did a bunch of the work in 2017, 2018, there was no increase attributed to that. So tax recovery property, so that's the rental property we have, just some minor, again, gas and power cost increase. We do have a transfer to capital there, so if those increase, we lower our transfer to capital for that project. So there's nothing really there, no changes. Our invoice for our provincial policing came, and it's $800 more than what the estimate was. So just so council's aware, in the 22 budget, we have $72,800 towards RCP that we didn't have 2 years ago. So
And that will go up again.
that will go up again in 23 and 24.
Exactly what is the tax recovery property? Like, is that, we're talking about, is that including the residents in town that we?
That is the residents in town that we pay. The part of the agreement is we pay the utilities are in the town's name, so we pay the power, the gas.
So I guess, I don't know if this is the time for this question, but what's the long-term goal of that piece of property?
The long-term goal is to try and keep the individual that's in there, living in there, having a place to live, until such time as they can live in that facility or live in that house, and then it would be ours. And my intention would be, as soon as we're done renting it, as soon as that's not an option, we would list it for sale.
So is there any other kind of transition that could happen for this individual? To set them up in a different location and offer it to others?
Yeah, there's potential there, but I think the individual we're dealing with, it would be extreme challenge to have them move out and move into a different setting. I totally agree. I don't think the person who's living in there probably should be living in there by themselves. But I think it's an individual that is not going to accept any other opportunity to live in there, whether that be in the lodge, that be in the manor, whether that be somewhere else. That wouldn't be a smooth option. So it's hard it's hard to explain it in any different terms, but from the town's perspective, as it sits now, we're generating more through our rent to cover the utilities and maintenance, and we are setting aside dollars in case there needs to be a new furnace put in or a new hot water, because we still have those obligations as a landlord provider. So
I guess I just wondered, like, with the town, is that primarily something we do? Is
No.
we get into
No.
agreements where we become landlords and, property owners for them.
we don't, Counselor Warwick, this was a specific special instance. But generally we don't get involved. This is the only one we have in this situation. Okay, I'll keep moving on then, if people are okay. So fire again, increasing the firefighter salaries, and that's just reflects the 3-year average based on the calls. It's not an increase to their pay. It's just an increase primarily based on their activity. Again, some natural gas power increases, and we, in your old budget, or in your December budget, there was a $325,000 transfer to capital for the new rescue truck from special areas. Well, they paid us their $325,000 prior to year end, so that's already been transferred over. So emergency management, again, contracted services to equal the employment agreement. So it's not an increase from what council approved in December with the contract. Dog control, just some decreased costs in animal control we were able to find. And of course, we didn't have the SPCA grant in December, which council's approved already. Common services, we have some salary and benefit savings. And you'll see salary and benefit savings in a number of areas. We do have an individual employee who's been off work and is on short-term disability, potentially transferring into long-term disability. So there is some savings to the budget there. We decreased the contracted services amount on the dam safety consulting cost side. Contracted repairs, we've had a roofing company look at the public works shop, and there's 3 areas that they are recommending we should have the membrane replaced. Not big areas. We've increased that for roof repairs. We had a breakdown with the hydrovac and heating coil, and again, natural gas costs and power costs. The natural gas costs out there are larger than most. I think I've said to this council before, our fixed rate we have for all of our facilities in town is $2 a gigajoule. That is serviced by East Central Gas, and they are a gas commission, so we can't go to any other retailers, and their costs, I think the last one looked at was over $7 a gigajoule. So that's the public works building gets hammered as a result of it being on East Central Gas versus Apex.
The hydrovac heating coil, I've been told that unit is not set up to operate in the winter time, so why would there be a heating coil?
I think that's what it's called. I'm not the expert on it.
No, because if it has a boiler on it, then we should be able to utilize it in the winter.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to ask Brent to answer that one. I don't
Okay,
have
thanks.
that answer. So through there, streets and roads again, just.
Excuse me, I have a question. Sorry, Kim. I'm just curious about the long-term disability. When does that no longer become the town's responsibility?
As long as they're on long-term disability, it's the town's responsibility.
Even if that individual has no intention of returning back to work?
And we don't control the long-term disability. That they will be managed by the insurance company. So as long as the insurance company approves their disability, they will remain on that disability.
So is there any indication of possibly finding a replacement for this individual? Because right now is that our public works is short staffed, are they not?
They are down one. It's one of the challenges with long-term disability is technically that job is their job. So if we do fill that position, it has to be filled on a temporary basis on the provision that that individual has their job when they're done with their long-term disability. So it is a bit of a challenge for us, Councilor Bowden, and
But in the interim, the rest of the staff are basically doing extra to cover this vacant position.
we're trying to do the same amount of work with one person less, yes.
Okay,
So we'll have a better idea as we move forward here, I think in the next short period of time, where that disability claim will go, and we'll have to then adjust from there.
okay, thank you.
Airport, I got an increase in the budget of $5,000 for the suite renovations. So we do need to do some extensive work in the bathroom with the tub and shower enclosure. Flooring should be updated in a couple of places. It could use, needs new paint. Our previous tenant didn't do a very good paint job, to say the least. And we're looking at, we did have a washer and dryer in the suite that has failed. So possibility of providing a washer and dryer for the suite as well to make it rental. There hasn't been a ton of work done in the suite. I would imagine the tub and shower, flooring, all of that
Original.
stuff is probably original. So just now that we had an opportunity to look at it, the challenge we've been having right now is just finding contractors who have the time to want to go in and do this stuff. So we're trying to put a priority on it. Councilor Olson has a potential tenant lined up for us, moving into town to work for special areas. So we're trying to see if we can get those done. But we do need, obviously, council to spend those dollars to make it usable. So, water, again, minor salary benefit savings, decrease in travel and training. Our Itron unit is our handheld water reading device. So there's been an increase in the contract there and the maintenance fees. And we did include another $10,000 in purchase repairs underwater to service the coal duplexes that council had agreed to. So that's an estimate to put the water and sewer services to the property line for that duplex. Sewer, again, nothing major there. Regional waste, when we looked at what we were bringing in through the regional waste fee, we do have a surplus. We had budgeted a surplus of 16,000, which we were going to transfer to reserves. It actually looks like it's going to be about 19, so there's a $3,300 transfer to reserves increase there. FCSS minor reduction in travel and training. Program development increase of 21,850. The 11,850 is the Alberta Health Services Grant and the Wellness Committee. This one will be, we didn't add this in the budget in December, but we did run a Music in the Park series last summer. So we're asking council for $10,000 to run that series again. So that's something council may choose to run, or they may choose not to run. Last year we ran it. We were able to get some grant dollars. We've got an application in to Blue Cross for funding, but no guarantee we'll get any funding there. And the other advantage we had last year when we ran the program was we were still in COVID. So a lot of the artists were available, and were available at a very reasonable price. So this year, we think COVID's no longer in place. Artists might be a little more expensive to bring in. But I don't know if anybody was able to take part in any of the music in the park last year. I thought it was fairly successful. I think we ran 8 weeks. So we'd like to continue that, but it would cost, we're estimating 10 grand to do that. So
I think it was very well received from the community as a whole, and those that participated, and listening to the diversity of musicians and talent that was there.
So, yeah, so we have that in there. Council allows that to stay there, and then we move forward with that program. Commercial office building is the one we leased to the learning center, the business hub. So again, just power and gas increases there. Business and communication. Here's our electronic sign. So that was the quote to repair our electronic sign was $7,200.
So repairing the sign versus replacing the sign.
I would have no idea replacement costs. Lori, I don't know if you remember, probably been there 10, 12 years.
Yeah, I'm gonna say between 70 and 120,000. I thought of that too, and
I'm just saying,
what
yeah,
am I thinking?
No,
Yeah,
no,
with newer
no.
technology.
yeah. With new
I
technology.
can
then we-
maybe try to find something a little more.
No, I mean, we're putting $7,200 into a 15-year-old sign, so.
Yeah.
Can't put perfume in it. Yeah. You're learning, Councilor Campion.
So that's what we got. That will bring our sign up to standard. We'll be working, we'll fix all the issues with it. Yeah, no guarantee that a year or 2 or 3, we'll have to put some money into it.
Yeah, no, I just,
Yeah, no, good question. Center, again, just power costs, subdivision, the 154, that's the completed demolition project, so we've got the money brought in on the revenue side to offset that. That will come in at, so the demolition project in totality came in at 557,000. So the original budget was 550. Council did allocate some additional dollars to 575, but came in at 557. So it's all done now. Under recreation, we reduced professional services. We've had money in there for project management assistance. So with the transition and not replacing that position, but we feel we can lower that. There still leaves some dollars there, but we're gonna lower it by 10. Swimming pool, again, just like utilities. Arena, mostly utilities. The only change in that list is we did have the sound system installation completed. It's done 100%. Talking with Sean Watts, the system is excellent. The sound is excellent. He said if we get complaints from people about the sound system in the arena, it's not our system. It will be either what they're tying into the system or some operator error that somebody's got in there and played with it the wrong way. But he said it's a simple system, but he said it sounds fantastic for the facility that it's in, and we should be good to go on the sound side for when we did increase the contract repairs at the ice plant, so it actually went up 10,000. We assigned 5 to arena. We had a brine pump rebuild that was unexpected. That was about $12,000. So, and then there was a few $1,000s with the ammonia we had early part of March. So park shop, just utility costs increase. Curling rink, basically same as the arena, except the sound system. Utility cost increases, and ice plant, we assigned 50% of the cost to the curling rink. Ball diamonds, just power costs. Fox Lake, just power costs. Parks, just some vehicle maintenance increases based on 3-year average
Is there a reason why there's a light on at the ball diamond all the time?
on the building.
Yeah,
Just security, I guess, of that building. So it's just been lights we have on the outside of the triplex building.
yeah, it's,
I don't know.
I don't know,
It's been there
yeah,
from day one.
it has, and that's, I just, it's one of those things where I leave for work every morning, I'm looking, there's a light on over there.
So, spray park, we did some readjustments to the spray park, when we initially set it up. The power costs all come from the same meter. So the curling rink, arena, pool, all are on 1 meter. The ice plant, all on 1 meter. So when we assign dollars to the respective areas, they're estimates. So last year we assigned to the spray park 10% of the overall cost in the summer and 5% in the winter. So we're deciding that probably a more accurate one would be 5%, 1% in the winter, because really the only power in that building is the outside light.
Yeah.
It's on the building, and from 10% to 5% in the summer. So that was a minor decrease there. Again, that's not a savings overall, that's just a reallocation to the other areas. So there's not an increase or decrease there. We had last year, when we got the spray park up and running, we did have a water leak underground from the installation. So we went through more water than we normally would. That has been repaired, so we reduced the water use. Again, 22 will be our first real idea, because 21 we were operating, but we had the leak. So 22 will give us an idea of how much water we will be using. Hector King Hunter Park, again, just power costs, soccer, power, museum, natural gas increases, library, same thing. Centennial Place, some changes at Centennial Place. As you're aware, our full-time staff person resigned in January, so we haven't filled that position. So we've reduced our full-time salaries and benefits as a result of not having a full-time staff person in place between January and July. We're still hoping to switch and have a full-time person there starting in July. But that means we need to increase our part-time salaries, because everyone who's working there will be considered part-time. So those are the changes there. The one that really bothers me is the elevator. So as council remembers, we pay a service contract for $6,000 for the elevator on an annual basis. And the province has new regulations, so they need to do a 5-year test, and it's $5,000 to do the 5-year test. So we got to load it up with the weights and do all of this. So it bothers me that we spend $11,000 this year on that elevator that
At $840 for full
has
bills.
phone in it, it goes up and down 5 times a day, versus the same elevator in a hotel or an office structure that goes up and down 1,000 times a day. They're all follow under the same requirements. So we weren't aware of the 5-year inspection until this spring. Other than that, it's just power and gas. And I think when we talked in December, we were unsure about the Hanna Fitness Center Association, but they did disband. So the honorarium we paid to them has been removed from the budget. So that's $2,500. Community center, just power and gas, and same with Lions Call. So if you're going to compare the December budget to this budget, there is some minor ones that I don't know if we've identified in terms of calculated on the 3-year average, whether that's insurance or other little things. Overall, our insurance costs increased by $6,900. So, and they've already paid and expensed amongst the departments, but it was a $6,900 increase from what we estimated in the budget. So Just a couple of things on the capital side, Mr. Mayor. So it increased by 489,000. Primarily, you'll see as we get to it, primarily as a result of the seniors amenity zone project being included in the budget. So fire department, no change. Common services, we did add a steamer, and I don't know what the right word is, steamer apparatus, but the apparatus inside our steamer truck blew up. So it's no longer functioning, no longer repairable. So the guys have been looking at prices for it, so that
And almost obsolete the more we have.
yeah, so we've got $11,000 for that steamer to make that steamer truck work the way it's supposed to work. So we talked about the generator, the completion of the generator that was from 21 funds not spent. We are buying a new water reader water reader device. The one we have is obsolete, and if it fails, they won't repair it or fix it. So it's come down in price. So we lowered the capital budget to 27.5 on it. The Acadia again, supply chain issue, it's 8 to 10 months away from having it. So we got our fingers crossed that our existing one will continue to function properly. Water slide pump, we got the pump purchased, we got it in, so we're able to reduce the capital budget there. The arena, we've increased the capital or added capital, the boiler replacement. We weren't anticipating replacing the boiler for the building, but it went in March. And so to get hot water throughout the building, we put in the new boiler and the price that it was. So we've added that. No change at curling rink, no change at Toxic Park. In parks, you'll see we increased put the seniors amenity zone project in. So we're getting 369,000 from the feds, but we have to match it with 123. So it's a total project of 490. We did have 50,000 in the budget incorporated for walking trail improvements. So we're putting that to that project. And of course, we've got the tennis court and skate park upgrades still a part of the budget. No change to the library. And at the community center, we had a new floor cleaner in the budget, and we've actually purchased it, and it came in at $5,000 versus $8,000. So right now, as it sits through this explanation council to balance the budget, no changes to the tax rate, to balance the budget, we will need to bring in $63,000, from surplus. The comment I want to make to that changes the dynamics of this whole thing potentially is we did request money from special areas for help with the arena condenser and help with the tennis court capital project. We have yet to get a response from special areas. I know it's in their system and working. I'm fairly optimistic. I'm not going to guarantee anything. I'm fairly optimistic we will get some funding from special areas that will go towards the condenser project. Not as confident on the tennis court side, but I'm thinking what we might get from them will be very close to, if not more, what our deficit is already, so that there wouldn't, if that came through, there'd be no need to draw anything from surplus. So that's the budget. I did want to talk a little about tax rates. So I think in your package, we put together, and if we look at the top one, if there's a 0% increase to the tax rates on the general municipal tax rate, we'll bring in $9,600 more than we initially planned. If you council wanted to consider raising the tax rate, if we raised the tax rate by 5%, both residentially and non-residentially. 0.5, sorry, not 5%. Thank you for the attention.
Yeah.
0.5, 0.5.
Trying to get rid of the bear, are you?
It's different than 5.0. It would generate an additional $14,000, which would mean less of a draw from reserves. Again, 1% increase in the tax rate would bring in $28,000 more, less draw from reserve. 2%, same thing, would bring in 56, would require only a draw of 7,800. And a 1% decrease in non-residential tax, because that was the one where the assessment went up, would be cost us about $9,600. So I don't know if there's any questions or concern. From our perspective, it's simple and easy to leave the tax rates the way they were. It will bring in $9,000 more than we originally budgeted for in December, but $9,000, $3.6 million, pretty close to where we were at. I don't think anyone would see any significant changes one way or the other. But if council felt, because our non-residential assessment went up, that they wanted to
So
lower the tax rate, we could.
That non-residential assessment, that's based on, was the GFL in there?
Yes. Yeah. It was in there to what they had done as of that point in time. So any further improvements or upgrades to it obviously increase the assessed value. So I don't know if there's any questions, concerns, discussions on the tax rate. Right now, as it sits, there's no changes to the tax rate. It will, potentially, there is an increase, as council knows, to the school on the residential side and Acadia. So there is a tiny increase to the tax rate as a result of those entities, which we don't have control of. I think, did we hand out those sheets? So I think you had some sheets on your desks too, that basically are different properties in town. You may notice your own property on there. We just generally use staff, council, a few different places. So that would give you an indication of where your property taxes would change. And I'll use mine as an example of transparent. So mine at the top, the 210 7th Avenue West address is mine. So if the tax rate stays the same, there will be some increases to the tax rate because of the school requisition in Acadia. I'm gonna pay $17 more in taxes in 2022 than I did in 2021. But the line at the bottom is what the municipal tax rate would be. So without the other increases, I would be seeing a municipal decrease of $3. So pretty close to even. So it kind of gives you an idea. There is one residential one that is higher. And again, if you look at that one, it is the result of the assessed value going up $40,000 on that particular property. So there is some residential one, and
I'm presuming, Ms. Camille, that was from an improvement, a garage or something?
I don't know if it was so much an improvement, Council Murphy, as
Resale.
as the resale value. When the property sold, it sold for significantly more than what the assessed value was. So the one is residential tax property. So you can see, other than the one place, and the other that has anything significant on is an apartment building. It's still taxed as residential, but it's an apartment building. If you look at the non-residential side, again, fairly close. We look at the bottom, and that is the GFL property. So that's what it's bringing in taxes that we didn't get on that property in 21. So I think that the eye opener for some of people on council is when you look at some of the residential or non-residential properties and what they pay in taxes, it's a significant amount. But, you know, there is some adjustments up or down that are generally maybe a little bit larger, but those adjustments are to an already existing high tax rate. So it's, the increase is probably fairly similar to the decrease.
I think somewhat kind of the assessment for them.
Pardon me?
What kind of assessment does it go to? I know that in 2021 to 22, like market the one that based on that.
Just sales or comparisons to other properties. The ones that do have a little bit of fluctuation sometimes are hotels. Because part of their assessment and the value of the property is based on occupancy and utilization. So if they have a occupancy, if you have a hotel that has 80% occupancy and another hotel that's exactly the same in the same condition that has a 40% occupancy, the 80% one is more valuable and is assessed. So I don't know, Mr. Mayor, where you want to go with this. Our plan is we need to have the tax rate set at the May meeting. So if we don't have any direction from council that they'd like to see the tax rates changed, that's the tax rate bylaw we will bring to council for approval in May. If there is discussion or consensus from council that they'd like to see the municipal tax rate increased or decreased, we can have that discussion here and take direction for the
Councilor Bodine.
Well, I was just wondering if there would be any appetite for, I know you've done wonderful work in getting everything printed out like you have with the different increases or not. But I was just wondering with a 0% for residential and a 1% decrease for non-residential, would that make much of a difference?
Well, it would make, Councilor Bowden, it would make a
About $10,000 difference?
It would make a $9,600 difference to the budget if we left the residential where it's at and we decrease the non-residential tax rate by 1%. It would be a cost to the town of $9,600, which would then increase the draw from reserves to balance the budget by $9,600. So not a significant one, but certainly one that council wish to pursue is a viable option.
And just a thought, I like the 0% across the board, but I just was wondering, you know, with, you know, the increase in fuel and all the other increases that our commercial or non-residential are dealing with. And I know some of them do not have a whole lot of benefit that they're getting from the town as far as, for example, on South Municipal Road. I just would be interested in seeing perhaps a reduction in the non-residential for 1%.
So that's why we put that option in there as for discussion, because we know that the assessment did go up on the non-residential side. So
or even a 5% decrease, you know, if it's not going to make that much difference. If we have a potential of getting most of that money back that's transferred from reserve with support from special areas for the condenser, but you know, that's we don't know that as a definite either. So it's just a thought that
yeah, this is totally over to council in terms of what they feel would be the best direction moving forward.
I like leaving it all at zeros. The 0.5% is a token gesture in my mind, good or bad. This depends how you look at it, but it doesn't really change the budget.
then a 1% decrease.
I'd be fine with the zeros.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I agree, all zeros.
I think it would be very difficult for us to look at our residents and say, we left yours alone, or we gave a bonus to businesses.
We're
And
not
I'm a little struggling with that part. And yes, I am struggling, as many of us are, but I would prefer to see that at zero, because the residents are zero.
The only, I guess the counter argument, Council Murphy.
The
in
assessments
that
are down in
situation is
residential.
assessments
Yeah,
are-
that is my only reason, and I don't see it as a bonus. It's,
Again, I know we look at $9,000 on a 1% decrease. You throw that across the breadth of all of the properties, and it's, and I don't want to use this frivolously, it's peanuts to them in terms of what they're going to save. It's more, as has been mentioned, it's more of a token thing to say, we're trying to help you, whether we helped your business by $50 in reduction in taxes. That's what it is. So, but we want to take direction from you guys. So I hear 3 councillors are comfortable with zeros. I don't know about Councillor Warwick and Councillor Kroll and your thoughts are.
Oh, I'm definitely on a 0% increase, and I would support a 1% increase in non-residential as well. I think we're trying to look at half businesses here, and to me, we'll do, you know what, we've taken other measures.
sorry, can I hear, Councillor Warwick, could you repeat what you said, please?
I just said what I.
Yeah.
Okay. I would support a 0% increase, in the general municipal taxes and increase and, or 0% increase and a 1% decrease in the non-residential. Just based on the assessment that commercial, their assessment has gone up and residential has not been affected. So I think what we've done and the measures we've taken in the past and what we continue to do to, you know, keep our businesses here, I think it supports the businesses that are already here as much as it does encourage other businesses to come into the community. I mean, we've taken several measures to try to get other businesses to come. What have we done really to support the businesses that already exist?
Yes, thank you. And I happen to agree with you.
Mr. Mayor, what are your thoughts? They look deep in thought down there.
I will share with you, I am one of the higher taxes on that list on the commercial side. Where I'm located, we have no sewer. We have no pavement.
Yeah.
The services are very limited to what we have. That being said, I bought the property knowing that when I bought it. I am okay with 0 on the commercial side, but I would like to see an increase of 0.5 on the residential, just to get us back to where we were.
You have no sewer, that whole road has no sewer?
That's every business along the South Municipal Road. They have no sewer or water.
Gotta fix that. That's my plan.
No, that's just my feelings. Like I said, as I tell people, it costs money to run the town. And that money comes from taxes. It's not, and it comes from provincial government, obviously, as well, but I mean, you know, we're all in the same boat. It's ugly. I understand that. As far as attracting businesses, I think our tax rates are very appealing already in comparison to some of the other. I talked to a fellow business person in Drumheller, and he has a shop that's about half the size of mine. He's got about an 1/8 of the property size that I have, and his taxes are almost double what mine are. I got another guy, a business associate I live with or work with. He's in New Brunswick. He's got a house that's comparable to mine. His taxes on his house, about the same year and everything, is $5,300. So Just my feelings. I'm one vote. I'm not opposed to 0-0. I just, yeah, it's easier to give back than it is to get.
I've talked to a couple of new residents in town in the last little while, that the shocking thing to them was the taxes on both of their residents.
High or low?
High.
Okay.
They felt it was extremely high for their residents, and they did the comparables to where they lived, of course, the property assessment was, and they said there where they came from, the taxes were significant than what they paid.
No, and I don't disagree. The larger, and that's the comparison I use. So the larger community you live in, and I use places like Cochrane, Airdrie, whatever, significantly larger size than us, but Airdrie might operate 3 ice surfaces for 100,000 people, 80,000 people. We have 1 ice surface for 2,600 people. Costs of operating them are fairly similar. So we do try to provide that high level of service and amenities, which the new people coming in like, but because we don't have the population or the assessment base, it's a bigger cost to those residents and non-residents that have it there. So there's no doubt, I think, in comparison, especially, and you have to, it's a game, so you have to take your assessment values too. Their houses in the larger centers are probably assessed higher too, and that's where they come from, and they go, okay, I had a $500,000 house and I paid this in taxes. I have a $100,000 house, I paid this in taxes. I did the same thing when I moved here from Stony Plain. I'm probably paying about $500 to $1,000 more here. But my comment was based on assessment, but my comment was I get the same services. Throughout the assessment, when my houses are assessed, I get the same service. Like drawing, this, open pool, everything's pretty much the same in terms of services provided. So, Mr. Mayor, the challenge here is coming to consensus so we know what to set the tax rate bylaw at. It sounds like we're close. It sounds like there's comfort with 0-0. It sounds like there's maybe a preference from a couple to have the non-res tax rate go up. But it also sounds from the mayor that he'd like to see the residential go up and not the tax. So I don't know how you want to move forward to.
The majority is, Mr. Mill, is we have a 0 across the board. And I mean, as I've said before, we are the council. It's not Mayor Pavishuk, it's not Councilor Campion. We are the council.
Yeah.
If the general consensus is to leave it at 0, I mean, I'm okay
That's
with
generally
that.
where we get to
Yeah.
is the consensus.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. I mean, and we all have our opinions of what we perceive and think, and we're a diverse group, which is awesome. But like I said, the general consensus appears to be 0s across the board. So.
And even if we do have some small differences in opinion, they're very small. We're pretty close together. So.
Councillor Bolden.
I just thought I misheard Mr. Neal mention that a 1% increase in non-residential. I think that should be a 1% decrease in non-residential and a 0%.
Yeah, if I said increase, I meant decrease. Yeah.
And I would just wonder if we could bring that one to the table as well. I believe Councillor Warwick was also in support of that particular example, 0 for residential and a 1% decrease for the non-residential based on assessment values.
Certainly, it's on the table, Councillor Bolden, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor Pavishuk, but how I read the group on consensus without voting is 4 councillors are comfortable with 0s across the board. 2 are comfortable with a 0 and a 1% decrease, and 1 I think you're all comfortable with it, but your preference would be 0% on non-res and a 1% decrease on non-res for 2 of you, and
The evil mayor.
one of you's got even a little slightly twist on it.
If you want a real vote, yeah, I'd go for 1%. we've been 30 minutes on $9,600 a year.
Yeah.
And again, if it's a token, could have been 1%. Yeah, a 1% decrease in non-residential.
Well, I guess that's where we need to go. We can't legally vote and make a decision today, but we need direction so that when we come back
We have our
on
ducks in a
Tuesday,
row.
we have the tax rate bylaw that says this is what it's gonna be. I know 2 years ago, we brought the tax rate bylaw back, and then there was more of this discussion around the table, and we had and not to say we won't again, we had a special council meeting to bring back some different options, again, so.
It's gonna be based on motion.
Well, that one will be, there'll be a tax rate bylaw presented, and then council will vote in favor or not in favor. Again, I wanna to,
Well, as a commercial owner, like I said, a 0.1 or 1% isn't going to make or break my
your
business.
business, no.
No.
It's, as it's been described, it's more of a optics token thing that, you know, we're trying to, or we're doing, even if it's a minimal thing,
Well, it's perception.
Yeah.
right? So,
I think you're better off to leave the percentage there. It's easier to leave it there now as to maybe next year we might have to increase a couple percentage and you might as well leave that there, and then if it does happen next year, something like that happens, then you can increase it 1% as opposed to the one you're giving back now and then trying to recover it, so.
And quite honestly, I am not going to support an increase at all. I think that I would rather seek out other ways of, you know, the minimal amount, trying to bring that to the table, reducing someone else in the community. The tax rate affects everybody, and I really feel like we owe it to our community at this point in time. Given, you know, sort of the whole, you know, environmental, what's going on in our whole community and everywhere. You know what, the reduction in dollars somehow supports our whole community as a whole, and I'm in favor of not supporting.
so I don't see anything that's, increase except for the mayor's on residential. So I'm not, no disrespect to the mayor. but
no,
let's throw the mayor's option on.
and
the
I'm fine,
table.
I'm fine. I just, like I said, I just voiced
Yeah,
my,
no,
yeah.
that's what we're here for. The options I think we throw on the table then, if I'm reading it correctly, would be zeros,
hold and -1.
zeros, or a 0 on the residential and a minus 0.1 of a
Minus.
percent on the non-residential. Those are the two.
Councilor Bowden, you got your hand up there? I can't, no, sorry, you're cross.
No, I didn't, sorry.
So those are the two that I see on the table. Am I reading that wrong?
No, that's
No,
not.
you're right.
So let's go around the table then and see which of those two options council supports. And then that will give us a direction to bring back the tax rate bylaw.
Councilor Bowden,
I would 0% residential, 1% decrease on non-residential.
Councilor Kroll,
0% residential and 1% decrease in non-residential.
Councilor Orland,
My sentiments are asking us prior to me to represent increase on residential and a 1% decrease on non-residential.
Olson,
Same, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, 0% and 1% decrease.
I got it, you get
0, 0.
I can,
Can't leave them all the same.
I'm fine with 0 and -1.
Okay, so that's the direction we'll take. Basically what that would mean is we could draw $9,600 more from surplus and we have a balanced budget and move forward.
Thank you.
Everybody's good with that?
Yeah, so we need the motion now.
Yeah,
So council accepts the information for the 2022 spring budget report dated April 27, 2022. And direct administration to bring the proposed 2022 operating budget and capital budget for review for approval on May 10th, 2022, regular council meeting. Motion from Councilor Kroll. All in favor? Sorry, Councilor Bowden. Carried.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Next is just council roundtable.
We did a little bit of round tabling already as far as crosswalks and ideas. I have a little bit of a concern. I know I usually go last, but with the water break we had our last meeting, I would have been happy if it was a valve failure, but it was actually a pipe failure. Whether that means we're gonna have more, I don't know. I'm hoping not, but we keep spending between, well, 12 and 20,000 for repair, and ultimately we still have the same pipe in the ground that we had before. And we repair and patch the structure above it. I think we need to start looking at biting the bullet and redoing the infrastructure in our downtown from one end to the other. And it's an ugly number. I understand that, but I just think that maybe it's time that we start looking at that as what's the necessity. Crosswalks, the sign in the middle of the street. I would like to suggest that we look at alternatives as far as removing it. We are going to have to fix that little patch where we dug up for the water breaks. This might be an opportune time to move that or do something different with it. I have been approached about a crosswalk between the two grocery stores and over to the Harvest Sky pharmacy. Again, I don't walk that much over there. I drive, but I don't commute downtown a whole bunch. It was mentioned to me. Just food for thought. So, yeah, that's my nutshell. So, Council Campion.
Yeah, I have to get going soon. So.
Yeah.
I just still know them French thing. Today is the day of mourning. Just in case many of you didn't know that. Workers' compensation. Hey, I sent you an email, Mr. Neal, about from the water levels from Garth Carl. Did you get it?
Yeah, he sent me yesterday.
For the council information right now, Helmer Dam is sitting at 65%. Fox Lake Park is at 62.5%. And the CN Dam is down to 50%. There's no sign of any of them getting any increases. Next thing is the post on second and second. I got another couple of calls on it. And then I got another one. Last night I talked to a guy who is very concerned about our hospital. He thinks that we should get a couple of counselors, the mayor, get Nate Horner together to try and get a meeting with the health minister. There's been a lot of patients lately that are released from Red Deer Hospital. I know one went to Castor, and the guy told me there was another one released from Red Deer, and they wound up transferring them to Rocky Mountain. That's a 3-hour hike over there. So I don't know. I'm hearing they're down to 6 beds, and that we've got to start doing something. If we lose this hospital, we might as well pack her in. You know, and there's a lot. It's not just one guy talking to me about these. It's others. You know, they're very concerned. Apparently, the new doctor, I was told, is moving into the United Church Mass.
Yes.
It's going to rent in there. And I just talked to a girl who was hired to go in and clean it up. And I guess that she had a cat. The minister did. That cat has destroyed some of the beds. other stuff inside there. The basement, she never took the kitty litter out. It's the blanket or something out in the shower down there.
But Council Campy, that's
That has-
none of our
No,
concern.
no, I know. It's, no,
You're the one who.
what a mess, yeah. Yeah, so.
Okay, Councilor Murphy?
Oh, one thing I wanted to ask, I was asked by a guy, when they took some of the campsites out at the museum campground, was there a transformer that they didn't use? It was some John Rui talked to me, he thought maybe we closed that campground, he wanted to buy the transformer or whatever. I told him to get a
I
hold of,
have to double check with,
I told him to
David.
get a hold of Brent, but
No, well, Brent might
Sure.
know too, but David, so when we did a bunch of work there, we tied in the campground to the fire hall and tied in the igloo lift station to the fire hall. So we got rid of a couple of meters and a couple of charges, service charges there. So there was a unit there that serviced the campground, and I'm not sure whether that's still at the fire hall and available, but
yeah. Well, if you do, John is interested in purchasing. I just forgot offhand what he said they wanted it for, but,
no, I can follow up with that one.
and I have to leave pretty quick, so.
Hey, Councilor Murphy?
Okay, two questions I have. One is about the pigeons. We took down a building, we did nothing about the pigeons, and now they're across the Westwood Hotel, they're all over the place. Is there going to be a plan to do something about the pigeons, or are we just going to?
I don't know, Councilor Murphy, being honest, what we can do.
I don't know.
They're a wild animal. They're not a domestic animal,
No.
they're a wild animal. I don't know what we can do legally to eradicate them or mitigate the issue.
And my second was I had an event at the Lions Hall. The hall is fantastic. But the parking lot, two of the guests were stuck because of the mud. That if you're gonna rent it out, you may have to do something about the parking lot, because you're gonna have some difficulty with that.
So, yeah, no, we are addressing that. We are gonna bring in some more granular material. The challenge is, and I don't think people are aware, there was very limited parking there. But there was a residence to the east of that was turned over to the town, and the building was demolished, and we left it as a vacant lot, of which somebody could come into the town and buy that lot and put a house on it, a trailer on it. So we didn't do a lot of work to it,
That makes sense.
because we didn't want to put a lot of gravel in and stuff in case Mr. Crow wanted to come and buy it and put a house on it, a trailer on it. But it's been like that probably now 5-6 years. So I think the plan is we're gonna bite the bullet, bring in some millings and shape that whole area east of the parking lot or east of the building to the next house and turn that into a full parking lot.
Is the facilities wonderful, and I think that people are gonna start using it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, no, that's on our list, so.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Councilor Olson?
I guess the only thing of interest, the golf course opened, been busy for a couple days. Next week we start school 2 afternoons a week, the junior golf 1 night a week. Ladies will start, the mixed club will start, and the men's will start this month too, so. Yeah, people should get up there.
Councilor Ward?
Going to my first in-person meeting in Kindersley tomorrow, Saskatchewan, third meeting feature. So, it's also we're celebrating a farewell to one of the long-term employees as well. So I will report back on that meeting next meeting.
Perfect. Councilor Crowe, you got to go to a meeting.
Finally, yes. I attend Veteran Memorial Highway Association meeting on April 22nd. It was a very good meeting. It was very informative. learned a little bit of the history of the association, some of the programs that they have in progress right now, and some of the future programs that they're looking at. They have, one of the members is publishing a tourist pamphlet of the 36. And, this is probably good for like that, but some of the businesses that are in each of these sites along the 36 campgrounds they want to promote. It's a very good association, and we're trying to get some pull-outs along the side of the highways for big loads, like wide loads and stuff like this. Couple of passing lanes and.
Can I excuse Councilor Campbell?
Sure, yeah, it gave
Where
me
you
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we go. Or may, I guess, is a proper term.
Yeah. They're gonna create the document on how they do it.
They applied to Alberta transportation, their concerns, but it's up to
Alberta Transportation.
transportation will happen. So they're going to set up a meeting with the Minister of Transportation. And they want to have a site manager from each municipal attending meetings and go from there.
Well, being it's, oh, sorry, Councilor, being it's a high clearance corridor, we do have our fair share of wide roads that go up and down. And Councilor, sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to make mention, was there any talk of how busy this road has become?
Oh, yeah.
Because just because I'm working north of town and I travel every day, it seems significant, the traffic on this highway versus what it has in the past.
This is about a 30-page study that they've done on the 36 and stuff. Fort McMurray is probably one of their biggest culprits, I guess, of transporting heavy loads, wide loads, and everything else. They've tried to approach Fort McMurray and have, I don't know what the name of the highway is, but there's in
881 and 36th Street.
the name is, it goes from the 36 to this highway. From Blackville Bishop to Fort McMurray. Fort McMurray will not agree to signing it over to the highway. And the reason is, if you're only a 2-digit highway, you get better service than everything else, but you have more restrictions.
So you're talking about the 881, but Councilor Cool.
It goes from Blackville Bishop.
Yeah, that's the 881.
It's on.
Yeah, it is, trust me.
Okay. Anyways, the Fort McMurray won't turn it over again, have the number changed on it. The other one is the railroad crossings at Kellam, Viking, and Highway 16. If you have any kind of a load at all, you're stuck out in the traffic, behind you. Yeah. I followed a truck up there on Good Friday. I followed it from Casper to Kellam, over an hour. He had chances to pull over. There were 18 vehicles behind him. And probably 7 of them were big trucks and setups, So when they pulled over at Kellam at the UFA, they pulled across the tracks, pulled in. I pulled up beside the guy and I said to him, why didn't you do this back at Forestburg? Do that Alliance. If you had 3 or 4 spots, you could have done that. He says, have a good day.
I'm glad to hear that, though, about the dual counties, I think it's.
Well, the Valley River, they want to put a passing lane in there, in a couple of blocks.
So, I don't wanna,
Rain
burst
on your
anybody's
parade.
bubble, but I know that Veterans Memorial has been working on additional passing lanes and rest stops, since I've been here for 9 years, so I know it's not nothing new, it's an ongoing it's an ongoing thing trying to convince them of the need for it, but ultimately, and if they meet with the minister again, that's a good step, so.
In regards to Mr. Hampton, the new doctor's supposed to be here first of May.
1st of June
Or, no, well,
is what we
I
were
just,
told, so.
I just talked to Kenny Hansen, he said it's first of May. She was doing her assessment and stuff, and I think it's kind of the end of the day. Yeah. That's all I have.
Counselor Bowden?
Thank you. I haven't been doing a whole lot, but I did attend the Property Rights Committee meeting that was in Hanna on April 12th. And there was, I don't know, maybe 30 people. And it was really quite an interesting thing. There's lots of stuff going on in property rights as far as landowners that are quite a concern. And I'll probably put something together out of my notes and things, but lots of people are losing more and more rights with their own property. And this committee that was established is going around different areas to hear people voice their concerns. So Rick Strankman was there, our MP, Damian Kirk, and several residents or several landowners that were within the special areas area. And they all have quite legitimate concerns about losing their property of their land. I also have, I guess there were probably about 6 people that did speak and brought up their concerns. The Hanna Roundhouse Society is interested in taking back their property on Roundhouse Road that crosses that road that's there that goes by our sign towards the town property is on the Roundhouse property. And with more and more activity going on that we're having at the Roundhouse this summer and in the future, we are hoping to take our property back, which will, in essence, kind of close that access to the CN Dam. There's people that go up and down there like they're going through a mud bog or something. It's a safety issue. And I think the idea is to leave it open for walkers and that sort of thing, but not for motorized vehicles. So I know that's going to create a bit of an issue, but the property line, somebody else is sitting on it. And we're going to make some efforts to try and close that road off as smoothly as possible and stuff, but I'm sure we'll get some feedback on that. And I did hear that pigeons, they go back to where they were born. And so maybe the ones that were all born in Central Meats and the Seymour and everything else, maybe they'll eventually go back. Pardon me?
Well, Home Hardware has all of them back.
I don't know. Maybe they finally agreed that they need to go somewhere else because they can't find a home. But that's what I've been told. So I don't think you can poison them. I think as far as animal rights and that sort of thing, but there has been a discussion about that. And I also am concerned with the situation of our hospital. And I did attend a ladies auxiliary meeting, and just for information's sake. And hopefully we'll find out more about what's going on with their involvement and where their money's going to go for the rummage sale money that's coming up this weekend. And I believe it's to put more money into their palliative care room for people to, the family of people that are passing away can spend time with them in comfort. So that's all I have. Thank you.
So Mayor, Mr. Mayor, just a comment on Councillor Bowden's discussion about Roundhouse Road. So I can bring a map to a future meeting, but Roundhouse Road K&T have built on Roundhouse Road. Structures on Roundhouse Road, which been there for 20 years, 30 years, however many years. So what Councillor Bowden refers to, then the road has shifted into their property. So it's a really messy situation. I don't know how you deal with it, but they do have structures that are on.
Permanent structures?
Permanent structures that are on
K&T truck.
the truck, K&T trucking, have permanent structures that are, from what we can see, are located on the legal road right away. But that whole road is a little bit off because when it was built, how it was built, it's supposed to come down adjacent to Tim Hortons. You see that little green area? That's where the legal road right away is, and the road was built. Actually, the road encroaches onto the owner of the parcels just off of Palisade Trail. So there could be some realignment that's needed down the road, but I'm not sure. Again, as Councillor Bowden said, it's not going to be a nice,
Won't be sexy.
transition, but there are, permanent structures on town property or on the road right away.
And we're not concerned about the access to the road itself. It's just our property cuts along and the individuals would still have access to go into their property. It's just, it's our property. And basically we've got events going on and we need to ensure that our people are safe and that sort of thing. So thank you, Mr. Neal, for explaining.
So is that a roundhouse issue or is that a town of Hanna issue, Mr. Wall?
Well, ultimately, we will be involved.
Correct. No, I just,
I don't know how long those buildings have been there, but they've been there a long time. And back in the day, they just build them here. Yeah.
I think one of the buildings can be moved, can it not?
I think they all can be moved. There would be an expense to move them, but we'd have to look at that a little bit closer. But I've got a great map sitting on my desk of it. So.
Yeah.
perfect.
And I do too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilor Bowden. Adjournment.
Sure.
Perfect. Easy peasy.
Thank you.